Welcome, everyone. Hey, I am Chris Gore from Film Thread. I am excited that you're with us today, watching us live now here on YouTube for the Film Thread podcast. This is our morning show on Fridays at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Happy to have you with us. So much to talk about on the show today. We are going to discuss the Northman, obviously. We have an interview with Robert Eggers. We also will be talking about The Bad Guys, which is the new DreamWorks animation and director of an indie film called Chloe and Theo. I'm excited to have you with us today. Let's get this thing started. What am I waiting for? Let's go. We have too much to do. Let's go. How's everybody doing today? Let's get going. My colleague, partner in crime, and the editor-in-chief of filmthreat.com, Alan Ng, is here with me.
Hey.
Alan, how's it going?
Yeah, I saw the Northman last night.
You did?
Yeah.
And?
Yeah. It's gory. It's violent.
It's gory, it's violent.
It's pretty epic too. I mean, I gotta hand it for a film that was shot in COVID. It's a pretty big film.
Well, there's a lot to discuss, and I want to get a few things out of the way at the top, which I have to tell you. Look, if you're new to this channel, please, we are trying to we want to get to 100,000 eventually, but we're going to kind of take it in increments. And every time we hit an additional 10,000 subscribers, when we hit 40,000, I have a very special video we're going to unroll and debut on the channel. But if you're new, hit that subscribe button. In fact, slap it.
Oh, wow.
That's all you have to do. Subscribe to the channel. Also, please follow us. We're Film Threat on everything. We're just Film Threat. And also, if you like free stuff, just send a self-addressed stamped envelope to our address at Film Threat, 5042 Wilshire Boulevard, PMB 1500, Los Angeles, California, 90036. It's time to mute your notifications, Alan. And then
I have River up, sorry.
There you go. And you can also support Film Threat by going to shop.filmthreat.com and follow us on everything. We are Film Threat on everything: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. If you're still using Facebook, I pretty much only use Facebook for work. And Film Threat t-shirts like this, they cure nudity on contact. That's what I like to say. But let's see who's in the chat before we get the show started. Look at this. Jeffrey Brooks is here. Says YouTube sucks at giving live notifications. Yeah, they kind of do. Jackie Ripper says Robert Eggers Day. It has arrived. Satan West says gory, violent. That's a good thing.
Yep.
Hannibal Grimm says I've only seen the opening and love it. So that's good. Kookie says, hail Film Threat. Hail everyone in the chat. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Justin Falzone says, whoop, whoop. And people are just talking. Cameron Montillo says, unbearable weight of massive talent was hilarious. Yes, it was. Alan and I saw it last week and talked about it. So there is a review on the channel. If you go to the Film Threat YouTube channel, you'll see. We do our live streams, which are a couple hours, and then we kind of take the clips to make it easier for you. If you just want to watch our review of The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, starring Nicolas Cage, movie I plan to see again. I want to see it again, but so many people here saying hail. They're saying hal and hail, and happy birthday. Wait, is it her birthday? Is it Amber Heard's birthday?
Oh, happy birthday, Amber.
I don't know. That trial has been a train wreck.
I can't watch it.
I've kind of watched parts of it, and I just say I wish I knew less about celebrities' personal lives. I don't need to know. I really don't need to know.
Well, it takes a special person to be a celebrity,
I guess, but like hearing like both of them, it's like this was two toxic people that just should not have been together. So yeah, very, very, So just ran. Northman is the modern Conan. I would agree. I would say that's probably the only movie you could really put it in a category with is Conan. It's epic in scale. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. Oh, we already have super chats. Okay, let's get through these and we'll get to our first film review. And we're gonna get to Robert Eggers. Hang on a sec. Luke James, very excited for this interview. SKOL, Skol. I think that's gotta be a Norwegian thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Luke James. Love that. And Rave Girl for $1.99 says, "Good morning, gentlemen. Happy Friday." Good morning to you. Now remember, if you send us a self-addressed stamped envelope, I'm going to send you back free stuff. But you can also go to our shop to get Film Threat stuff too.
So I got to know, has anyone taken you up on that offer yet?
I checked the mailbox this week. No one has. So
okay.
There you go.
You can be the first.
Look, the more postage you put on it, the more stuff I can put in there.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll throw you a DVD if there's enough postage. You just send me postage pre-address to you, and I will send you something. It's as simple as that. So there you go. So thank you, everybody, for your super chats. Hail Film Threathausen. Film Threathausen. We should do a t-shirt like that.
Film Threathausen.
We're doing a new round of t-shirts, and I'm really excited for the designs we have coming up. I don't want to get into it too deeply, but all I can say is this. The new round, we're going to have like debut over the summer, a whole bunch of new Film Threat t-shirts. And
before you ask,
awesome.
I have an order of shirts coming to me right now. So.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Sparkly Peg says, "Damn, I'm in Australia. I'd send you an envelope." What is stopping? You could send me an envelope. All you're sending me is an empty envelope with postage already on it, so I can fill it with stuff and send it back to you.
Yeah, we're talking like $15.
If you give me enough postage, I'll send you a DVD and stickers and a whole bunch of stuff. But you can also buy stuff too. So Toxic Waltz N8 is back and says, "Catching the 3:15 of Northman this afternoon." Fletcher Williams is here. Good to see all of you here. And then Infinite Main says, "Millennials don't know what self-addressed means anymore." Okay, Infinite Main, funny story. An intern who worked for me in the early 2000s, who went on to become a digital effects artist, working both at like Marvel and then went on to work at DC, worked for me. And I said, "Look," I said, "we need to mail out a bunch of stuff. And so here's some envelopes." And he didn't know how to address an envelope, meaning the address goes here, the return address goes in the upper left, and the stamp goes on the upper right. I had to explain how an envelope worked to a college, someone in college working for me. Great guy, by the way. Great guy. And he went on to become very successful. So, which is crazy. Mexican Iron Man Mike is here. I saw the Northman last night. Really enjoyed it. Wow.
Yeah.
We are going to get to it. First, I want to get this out of the way because the Northman's not the only movie that opened. Okay. Just want to get this out there. Let's talk about The Bad Guys, Alan. The Bad Guys is okay. No,
you all know I saw it.
Well, you saw it, right? You saw
Yeah.
it. Okay. So just to explain what The Bad Guys is. Wait, I gotta get our branding up here. Here we go.
Yeah.
Got to get the branding. We're getting the everything set up here. Okay. So The Bad Guys. The Bad Guys is an animated movie with a very interesting style for it because it sort of mixes 3D animation with 2D animation. It's based on a children's book series. These are chapter books, so not all pictures, about a group of bad guys. These are traditional bad characters in children's storytelling, like a snake, played by Mark Maron, and a wolf, played by Sam Rockwell, and a shark, and a piranha, and a tarantula spider. And they're bad, and they pull off heists. It was described by the filmmakers actually as, this is a Tarantino movie for kids. And in some ways it is. The opening scene where the wolf and the snake, who are friends, it's right out of Pulp Fiction. It's the opening scene. It's Pulp Fiction. It's so good. It's the diner from Pulp Fiction, basically. But that sort of sets up the story of, you meet these characters, they pull a heist, the cops are always after them, they never get caught. And then the wolf has a moment where the wolf does something nice, an act of kindness, an act of selflessness, and feels good doing something good. And that kind of sort of sets the seeds of, could the bad guys actually turn good? There's a lot of other intrigue with the governor, right? Just called the governor. I don't know. They never even mentioned really what state they're in, do they?
Well, there's a map, and it's LA. It's Southern California.
Well, definitely looks like LA, but she's the governor, right? So there you go. She's also a fox. Okay. That plays into stuff later. But then they get caught during one of the heists, and the governor gives them a second chance that if they can be rehabilitated through Professor Marmalade, played by what's the actor's name?
Richard Ayoade.
Richard Ayoade from the IT crowd. Yeah. First of all, I love the IT crowd. That show is so good. If you can catch it wherever it is, I don't know what streaming service it's on. Richard Ayoade, he's great as Professor Marmalade. He's got this and he's basically he's like a guinea pig, right?
Yeah. He's a guinea pig.
He's a guinea pig. Okay, which is weird, but this is a movie for kids that I actually think adults can enjoy. I actually did enjoy like all the references. Is it great? No, it's not among the greats like a Pixar. I'm sorry, it's just not. Did I enjoy myself? Yeah, it was fine for an hour and a half. I have some problems, but before I get into the problems, Alan, I have to hear what you thought.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it a lot. I had a really good time, especially as an adult. First thing that struck me was how much I'm in love with this animation style. Very soft colors, almost watercolor with some hand-drawn lines to do the eyes. But I was just enamored by this style, and you know, I'm kind of like tired of the I guess the perfect CG animation that comes out of Pixar and Blue Sky and the other ones. Just the way this was just designed visually is great. And then also, I don't think I've ever seen an animated feature based in LA. I mean, it doesn't say it's LA, but based on the map they show us, and you know, if you've ever lived in downtown LA or the Valley or Hollywood, this is very LA, and that got me really excited as well. So there's a little nostalgia there for me. But yeah, it's just fun. It is absolutely fun. The message is be nice. The message is, you know, you're not bad. You're just drawn that way. You know, and so I think this is just kind of the nice, safe film that we wanted to have take our children to, without getting some message that we don't need. And I certainly had a great deal of fun with it. I think the cast was great, was perfect. I'll bring up Awkwafina. You know, she's just got this voice that works perfectly with that tarantula. And so absolutely, if you got kids, go see it. If you don't have kids, you might want to see it as well. It's certainly an alternative from Disney, what Disney's been putting out lately.
Well, I'll say this: it's a refreshing that it's not super woke. I mean, there's not really anything overtly woke about it. In fact, I thought it was really interesting. I don't know if you noticed, the fox, you know, the governor.
Yeah,
she has an eyebrow piercing.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's really interesting. And it's not really obvious. It's like, it's there. She has an eyebrow piercing. So it's like kind of punk. She's kind of punk rock. She's kind of punk rock in that way. And that was something that was not expected. I didn't love it as much as you did. I thought it was fine. I thought it was, you know, refreshing that it wasn't super woke, because a lot of the stuff you see these days, it feels like you can feel when the agenda is being shoehorned in. When it's just like there's a moment where there's a character. I will say this. I'll say this about the movie. Here are the things that really stood out to me. This movie, in terms of the populace of the city, very diverse. I've never seen more of an effort to have like a mix of all types, United Colors of Benetton of people, and it's very overt.
Yeah, but if it takes place in LA, I mean, I hate to say it, but LA is probably the most diverse city in the world.
I'm just saying it was really sort of in there where they showed a lot of the people from the city, and they're all very diverse people. Okay, fine. I don't consider that necessarily wokeness in LA. That's reality, as you pointed out. But it's also, the other thing is the chief of police. I loved the lesbian chief of police. She was great. She was, I mean, isn't it one of the actresses from...
Yes, Alex Borstein.
From Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah.
A show I watched maybe the first half of season 1, and then I lost interest in it.
Yeah, she was on Mad TV as well.
Yeah, so she's like this, and the character's funny. She has these like big teeth and red hair and like it's a very funny character. It's different than doing a typical type. But here's what bothered me about the movie, if I could point out something really big.
Okay.
And I'm sure everybody in the chat.
I think I know what you're going to say. Like,
everybody in the chat's going to say, when are you getting to the North? We're getting to the Northman. Don't worry. People are still getting their coffee, and I'm among them. So the logic is that all these people are in this town and they're humans. They have a governor that's a fox, and then they have these characters that just dress, the animals that dress in clothes, and nobody points it out. You've also got a professor who's a guinea pig. Then you have sort of guinea pigs that are not smart, that are just wild and used for animal experimentation. So the commentary is not like, this is not like anything different that you'd see in like an old Looney Tunes, right? It's just a little bit of commentary on like, hey, animal test, they're using guinea pigs for animal testing. Okay, that's in reality too. So but I don't get the idea of, okay, you've got these intelligent human speaking animals dressing in clothes just cavorting around with humans. It's not like Zootopia where it's like all different types of animals and they're all kind of like living their separate lives and they're all, this is an integrated world of humans and animals, with the animals being, they have clothes on and they just talk to people like they're just there. I call BS. I call BS on this. And I feel like in the world building, it needed to like explain a little more to me, because there weren't many other animals that were, I don't want to say anthropomorphized. They were, that's not the right word. It's
they were animals that stood on two legs and talked. I mean,
animals that stood on two legs and talked. And the snake had like, he'd wear like a Hawaiian shirt and a hat. It was just weird. Like, it was weird. Like, so I don't know. Like, I guess you just like, look, no kid is going to sit there and question this.
I mean, have you not
question it?
Have you not seen a Muppet movie?
Yes, I've seen the Muppet movie.
I mean, really, it's like there's this suspension of disbelief that has to go on.
Well, there's a like a
and they're trying to sell toys. They're not going to sell toys of people.
Hey, we got
toys of these animals.
We got a $10 super chat from Ryan Cannell of RK Outpost. Subscribe to his channel if you're not already subscribed. Sitting down to watch The Northman right now. Well, I can't wait to hear what you think of it on FNT Friday Night Tights. I'll be watching this afternoon, 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. Probably late. Probably not at that time, but whatever. Ryan, you're gonna have a good time. You're gonna have a good time at that movie. Okay.
We do have another super chat that.
Did we miss a super chat? Yes. Okay. Les Dart, 249 CZK says, I love Northman. It's like bloody Shakespearean drama with Vikings and their mythology. What's not to love? Hail Film Threat. Thank you, Les Dart. Love it. That's great. Sorry, I missed that one. And then people are saying hail to Ryan Cannell. So that's good. He's sitting down to watch it. That's great. Hannibal Grimm says, RK Outpost, you'll love it, man. So that's great. So back to the
bad guys.
Bad guys. Look, it's a mixed positive review from me, just because I feel like it's like, wait, Ryan Knell says, I heard my Batman complaints probably won't exist in this movie. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think you're good. I think you're good. Yeah, you're not gonna.
I have an issue with the diversity quotient in the.
Yeah, well, there you go. But yeah, Ryan, can't wait to hear what you think on FNT later today. I don't know, Ryan. Sounds like you're not trying. And then DMFO says, thanks, Chris Gore, for recommending KGF. That's right. KGF Chapter 1 is on Amazon Prime, and KGF Chapter 2 is in limited release in theaters. We're going to talk about that next week. Actually.
Did you wind up seeing it, or?
I did not wind up seeing it in the
this weekend. So,
well, if it's still playing, I really gotta it's what can you say? Anyways, the chat is on fire. I want to wrap up our conversation about the bad guys. We're gonna pivot over to the Northman, but bad guys it's a mild recommendation. It's a mild recommendation for me. I feel like the Pixar movies, at least the classic Pixar movies, the older Pixar movies that weren't burdened with the agenda that has seemed to have seeped into everything Disney these days. I feel like it's fun. I mean, it's refreshing just because it doesn't have a lot of that. I mean, sure, it's there, in a little bit, like with the animal testing thing, and they have to rescue the guinea pigs from animal testing. It's like, okay, yeah,
Yeah, you can't test on cute animals. You gotta do it on the ugly ones.
You got to do it on animals that are more loathsome, like rats. I'm surprised there's not a rat in the bad guys. But look, it's a fine film. It's entertaining, and I just think that the logic, if you really think about it, like I'll tell you this,
it's a kids movie.
If I was 11 years old and I saw this, I would be bringing up the same complaint. Because I told a story. This is on Paulie from Latino Slant. I did his podcast where we just like talked about actually just a conversation between and if Hail Paulie, I saw him in the chat earlier, subscribe to the Latino Slant. Their focus is mainly Latinos in cinema and Latino cinema in general. He actually recommended a movie to me that I plan to see that I actually just bought and I haven't seen yet. It's called El Chicano. It's like a Mexican Batman. It's like so I can't wait to see it. And it's like a superhero story. So at very low budget. It looks badass actually. So I watched the trailer. We'll be talking about that in a future show. But Paulie and I have gotten this whole conversation. And when I was a kid, and I'll tell this story another time because we don't have a lot of time today, lots to get to. About how I didn't like movies when I was a kid because I thought they were fake because you never saw anyone go to the bathroom in movies. And then I come to find out, if we have time today, I'll tell this story, but come to find out that like there are whole websites dedicated to scenes in movies where characters go to the bathroom, sort of, inconsequentially just go to the bathroom. One in particular, Eyes Wide Shut, Nicole Kidman tinkles in the bathroom right in front of Tom Cruise as they're, getting ready to go somewhere, right? She just sort of does a quick tinkle, it happens in real life. And I always appreciate it. Hail to Paulie in the chat here. El Chicano. I bought the movie on Vudu and I'm watching it and we're going to talk about it, but
maybe I'll take a,
but so it bothered me as a kid that I saw nobody go to the bathroom in a movie. It felt fake to me. I watched The Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind, West Side Story. Not one time in any of those films do characters go to the bathroom. And to me, that's fake. And so I call BS on the bad guys for animals wearing clothes and just sort of nonchalantly people just accept them into society. The humans are just like, yeah, whatever. There's a piranha wearing a tuxedo delivering food at a restaurant. That doesn't make any sense. There's a lapse in logic for this movie.
And no one thinks twice about it.
No one thinks twice about it. Okay, here we go. We're going to get Shane Mackey is here. Shane Mackey, someone goes to the bathroom in Ice Pirates. Yes. Kudos to any movie where a character goes to the bathroom. I think it is very important.
Yeah.
It is very important to ground that reality. So there you go. Shane Mackey.
Yeah, Labyrinth, we have a Muppet going to the bathroom.
We need to make a list on Film Threat of characters that go to the bathroom. But to wrap it up, Alan, you recommend the bad guys.
Well, I find it interesting that the conversation now is, well, this movie's not woke, or the discussion is
that's every movie. That's every movie now.
Yeah.
Is like, because it is a distraction. It takes you out of the movie.
Absolutely.
So that's why I believe that when a movie is overly woke, I expect sort of some elements. It's like fine. Some studio executive relented and acquiesced to some nagging thing that an assistant was bugging him. Some assistant fresh out of college is bugging some studio executive that then bothers the filmmakers and sort of bullies them into, can you just put this one character in and have them say a stupid line? Like there's a character in the movie Ambulance that literally the character is in there specifically for wokeness and calling out like dumb white people and making like stupid comments about, that's in the Michael Bay's new movie Ambulance. There's a character that's like she's the woman in the seat and she's sassy and she's making sort of woke comments about stuff. And it's just a distraction. It takes you out of the movie. And I think it makes the movie less timeless and more rooted in like, I guess this is the thing people are talking about on Twitter, but most people don't talk about that stuff on a regular basis. Fletcher,
and again, LA is a diverse city. Every ethnicity is represented.
That part I don't care. That part I don't care about because that's actually real.
Yeah.
Right. That's real. But Fletcher Williams says the woke narrative is like a parasitic joy kill. No one wants to see it now. That's true. I would say the average person doesn't want to see it unless they're on Twitter so they can like celebrate that there's some win because some sort of woke narrative like leaked into a mainstream movie.
We still talk about that one single line from the Batman that just
right.
You know,
it kind of killed it. That's when the movie was just like, okay, what a Satan West. I like your name. There you go. Women saying woke stuff in movies is so annoying. How about in real life? So Lagbait says, okay, just watch the El Chicano official trailer. The trailer does everything right. That's low budget. Well, I mean, it's not a big studio movie. Okay, that's just what I'll say. It's, you know, it's in the millions of dollars, yes, but I don't mean it's like it's not like a it's not a big So Lagbait, I you know, low budget. You know, we'll talk dollars. You know, but there you go.
Yeah, I reviewed a Batman movie, indie Batman movie from Guam. And
is that on the website? Is that on Film Threat?
Yeah, it's on. That was like one of my early reviews here. And
what was the name of it again? I forget
the name of it, but it was super low budget. I mean,
that one was super low budget.
Yeah, handheld video cameras.
El Chicano's only low budget for Hollywood. Let's say that. Okay, that's fair. Anyways, wrapping up. Lagbaits. I'm sorry, I paid attention. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I would just. We'll talk about budgets and numbers and whatever. So, and Fletcher Williams says it was amazing what they did with such a low budget. So there you go. Right now, okay. Before and we have Robert Eggers, and just I need to let you guys know something. Is one, initially we were going to have Robert Eggers on live so you could chat with him. Unfortunately, in dealing with everything with the people promoting the movie, could not make that happen. However, I did get to interview Robert Eggers for 15 minutes, and we're going to play that interview. And I asked him, I think you're going to love my opening question. It's kind of stupid, whatever. I could tell that they had Robert Eggers, like they basically had him doing interviews all day, and we couldn't make it work. And also you're going to see my living room in the background. I actually did the interview via Zoom in my living room. So we're going to watch that interview after Alan and I. So my apologies on that. We'll talk about the Eggers interview and the questions. There's never enough time with it. I really wanted to get sort of into the deep lore. He got into it a little bit, but let's actually talk now about the Northman. Let's talk Northman right now. Okay. Alan, I saw it last week. You saw
I saw it last night.
You saw it last
night? Literally 6 hours ago.
Okay, so I want to hear your thoughts on the Northman because I did the bad guys first. Now it's your turn. Yeah. Kick it off for our review of the Northman.
Yeah. So I went basically because of the interview, and also you'd highly recommended it, and I think I was kind of preparing myself because I believe you said like the second half was like a horror movie. And so I was kind of preparing myself for that. But what I think ultimately when I felt like it was a kind of a dark version of Braveheart.
I wouldn't compare it necessarily to Braveheart.
In the sense of the story, the grand story being told, one of kingdoms and of men, and then the violence in it. I think Braveheart was much more in the daylight, while this one is much more in the dark. And so, I don't want to necessarily rehash the story because we've talked about that already. But it was, I get fairly squeamish at this stuff, and definitely this movie made me squeamish. It's very gory, it's very violent, and there's definitely a market for that. And and I'm constantly having to look away at the camera. But it's, I think there's a refreshingness to it in the sense of I've not seen a story like this in a very long time, and I think that's why I bring up Braveheart. It's been a long time since I've seen a story like that that just really gets gritty and down to earth, and and just tells a really good story. And clearly, I've learned a lot more about Norse mythology than than I have in my
Well,
entire life.
let's actually get into it a little bit, because I talked to
Yeah.
EGGERS about this, and you'll see when we discuss in the interview. But the time period that this is kind of set in is like the 900s, between 900 and 1100.
985 AD.
Yeah, something like that. And then what it really is just the story, and this is a Norse legend, right, of Prince Olmeth. And Prince Olmeth and that story is the inspiration for Shakespeare's Macbeth centuries later. So you'll see really what this is more comparable to is Macbeth, but it's not obvious in the beginning. It's kind of Macbeth in a little bit in the reverse. And I don't want to get into too much spoiler things that could be spoilery, because I know people still haven't seen it. But I'll say that I would compare it more to Macbeth than anything else. And by that I mean, like, this is the story that this is based on is actually the inspiration for Macbeth, the story of Prince Olmeth. So it's really based on Norse legends. So
now the movie is not very woke. There's a lot of it's almost all white people.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that?
Well,
and then there's raping and pillaging going on.
I hate that we even need to bring it up. Like, it's just like there's nothing. It's just a good story.
It's a movie of the time and of the context of the time, and you insert something that doesn't belong in it, and that's going to stand out, and that's the woke moment where you have to have something that's not there.
Also, it's very much a horror film, especially in the second half, because what you see in the first half of the movie. The first half of the movie is actually kind of the story, the first act. You kind of see in the trailer.
Yeah.
But then after you're watching the movie and you're like, oh, we're kind of into territory that's not in the trailer. I have no idea what's going to happen. But, the story, it takes this turn sort of right about maybe, a third of the way into the movie. That is such a great turn where you have no idea what's going to happen. And I don't know how much I want to get into spoilers, but
I just say there's Excalibur elements that I think might be interpreted as horror, but I kind of interpret it as mythology, and so that's why I don't necessarily feel it was a horror film, but much more spiritual mythology going on in the second half.
Well, it has elements of horror for sure. I mean, especially when it comes to some of the gruesome deaths. I mean, it is absolutely brutal. And what's interesting is that Alexander Skarsgård, for a decade, was trying to get this movie made. He wanted to make a movie. And ironically, what's interesting about Alexander Skarsgård is he played a character named Eric Northman in True Blood. And then in this movie, he's in a movie called The Northman. I found that interesting. But it's fascinating that, like, he was, like, able to pull this off in such a realistic way. You'll hear in the interview when we talk about it, like, how the sense of realism, although I'm told that there is and if you've seen the movie, this isn't quite a spoiler, but it's something you're gonna this is a minor spoiler warnings for anyone in the chat or anyone watching live right now. Some minor spoilers. There's a fight with two naked men with just swords and shields. And my understanding is there was some digital trickery with regard to the nudity.
You're talking about lengthening, or
I'm not saying that necessarily. I'm just saying there's two naked. It's brutal though. It's such a brutal fight. And just imagine, like, well, that's probably how it was back then, in the sense that, like, you probably wouldn't want a lot of clothes, because you're going to get, you're going to get something caught on something. And then, you'll be at a moment of vulnerability. It's better to just have, when it comes to sword fighting, I think clothing optional. Optional for sure. And
it's one of the two sword fights that occur between two individuals versus most of the film is more war fighting. Guys running into the village, hacking and slashing.
War, yes. Raping and pillaging, yes, that happens. I mean, effectively, like I say, everything that you see in the trailer is about the first third of the movie. Then it gets off into this intrigue that is absolutely amazing. Where, and again, we're minor spoiler territory here. Prince Olmeth, who's now grown, he's freaking Alexander Skarsgård, right?
He grows a lot in the movie. Yeah.
Yes, he's a kid, and then he's much older man. In any case, he allows himself to be captured as a slave in order to infiltrate and hunt down his uncle Fjordur and take his revenge. And then the movie, and then it's not something that is like a haha, you're here, I'm gonna get you. It's like, no, it's this slow kind of horror movie. Like it's so great. The second half of the movie, the way the story just sort of plays out, and the audience knows what's going on. The characters on screen are mystified, and how that plays out is awesome. And Anya Taylor-Joy is fantastic in this as well. She definitely, I mean, in addition to Alexander Skarsgård, and his physique is just, I mean, he obviously put everything into it, but she's fantastic in this film as well. Like there's a conversation about how like men and women kind of have different strengths, and hers is, she has a different card to play, so to speak. And I
believe they were naked at the time when they had that conversation.
Yeah, and the cinematography, just everything about it. I don't know. It's one of my favorite movies this year. This, along with RRR, a film that keeps coming up. I know no one else has seen it, but Alan and I, and Paulie from Latino Slant has also seen it. But yeah, and there's some great. I'm starring some of your comments because we're gonna get to them. We're gonna get to them for sure. But it's, yeah, I loved it. I want to see it again. It's also it's a slow burn, and it pays off, and it's fantastic. So there you go. We should go to some of the comments here. Alan, do you have anything else to add? I mean, would you recommend The Northman?
Oh, I would definitely recommend The Northman.
Yeah.
Again, we just keep going back to this return to traditional storytelling, to
more
grand storytelling, and just, yeah. I it's like we get into these loops where we just talk about how wrong Hollywood is going.
Well,
And
this is an example of a correct direction, right? They spent Focus Features,
Focus Features,
effectively. That's Universal, right? Sometimes I get the sub companies mixed up, but yeah. So it's effectively Universal. They spent $90 million on this, and what I really appreciate about it as well is it's traditional storytelling. It's not weird like The Lighthouse. I would say it's hard to compare it to The Lighthouse. Someone asked, better than Lighthouse, different, not comparable. It's like comparing.
I think it evokes the same emotional levels. I mean, that's what Eggers does so well, is elicit emotions.
It's similar in the sense that there is a fart. Like there is a moment in The Northman where farts are like kind of a big part of The Lighthouse. It's like two guys in there, and they're gonna fart. They're gonna do guy stuff, right? Well, there's a scene, but it's played in like this sort of like, it's funny, but it's also in like this kind of like, you're becoming a man. That's a healthy fart, right? Like it's anyways. It's great that like Eggers is not above like, I'm gonna put a fart in The Northman, but I will say this, I think the only thing you could even compare this to in terms of storytelling is like Conan the Barbarian, the original, directed by John Milius. I still like that movie a little bit better just because, I saw it when I was a kid. I've seen that movie countless times. The score by Basil Polidorus is incredible. The musical score here is it's good. It's just not like I like the Basil Polidorus. What can I say? So, but I would put it in a class with Conan. Is it the best barbarian film since Conan? 100%. It's just very different. And I'm really curious how people are going to respond to this, in the sense of it's very much an art film. It has art film sensibilities on an epic scale. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there are some art house sensibilities, for example, Willem Dafoe's character. So
yeah, I didn't even know that was him, and he was on and off so quickly.
And let's see, Positive Fandom for $9.99. Thank you for that. Says, oh, hi, gents. This film is possibly the film of the year. Don't trust the trailer, which is actually a good thing. I think don't trust the trailer. The trailer sort of leads you to believe one thing, and it's different. The film is a historical and culturally significant piece that rejects modernity and embraces masculinity. Well done. Yes, I agree. It embraces.
Absolutely.
There's nothing about like, there's nothing about like toxic masculinity or any of that stuff. So,
but here's the question I was going to ask Robert if he was on. But they gave him $90 million to make it. It was shot. I think it was in pre-production before COVID and then shot during COVID. The question is could he have made the movie today in 2022? Would they have given him $90 million to make this movie?
I don't know. That question, not sure. So let's see. Paulie from Latino Slant says Conan was comic compared to the Northman. Not that it's bad, just different. This is Norse drama with bloodline betrayal. Loved it. Yeah. Actually, Paulie has like a review. It's like a right out of the theater review, and usually those are like 5 minutes. And Paulie talked for like 30 minutes. I watched it last night, Paulie. I watched your review right out of the theater. So that was great. Cool. So let's get to some of these comments here. We've got a bunch of starred comments. We're going to get to the comments about Eggers. We'll discuss after we watch the Eggers interview. Shane Backey says, watch the Vivitch with director commentary this morning. He was way too hard on himself. My favorite horror movie in years. iDog says, I thought it was Hamlet. Yeah, it's not Braveheart, Alan. It's Hamlet.
No, I'm just saying the last movie that was of this scale. Braveheart.
Nah, the last movie you could compare it to I guess because Braveheart is historical. Conan is not historical. Conan is fiction. So I'll give you that, but I felt it was more like the story of Prince Almeth, the legend, that story was the seeds of Macbeth for Shakespeare.
I mean, I will agree with you there. I'm just talking about the scale of the film and the depth of this and the depth of the story at that point.
And Horror Mike says, I like the Vivitch and the Lighthouse equally. The Lighthouse cinematography is astounding. And Infinite Main says, clothing might protect the things I don't want getting caught on anything. Fair point. Mudball Creative says, we were talking wieners. Now we're talking about growing. What kind of movie is this? And then Experiment 66 says Skarsgård got back his Tarzan body for the Northman at 100%. Yeah, I mean, that trailer's insane. Cavatino Cavalryman Shay says, so ladies and certain men will learn about Alexander Skarsgård's curves and see what body part they would love to scrub clean. Absolutely.
A lot of curves in this movie.
Max What Up says Defoe's scenes were great. He definitely had a big impact on this movie, despite only being in it for a small amount of screen time. My understanding is that there were a couple extra scenes that were cut from the film. So
I didn't even realize that was him when it happened.
Yeah, Redman, I think the relationship between main characters should have been more fleshed out. They kind of go from strangers to making babies, not much shown in between. That's fair. I mean, screen time has a lot to do with it. It just, I just feel that like my concern with the Northman is are audiences today going to embrace it? Because it's a little weird. It's there are aspects of it you could describe as like possibly a drug trip. There are a couple scenes in there that are very freaky, and there are some twists and betrayals. But that's
why I asked if it could have been made. If it could be made today, our studio is going to risk telling this kind of a story.
Disney would never make this. Disney would never make this. I feel like I feel like where Disney is today is I don't know.
It's like where their stock prices are.
Yeah, it's I don't understand why can't there be some sea change? I don't understand what at a certain point you have to maybe look at like, should we fire people because they're not
making money.
They're not making money. I mean, it's costing them now. So I don't think a studio like Disney could make it, but could Universal? Yeah. I mean, if you look at what Universal's done, even in their like, the Sing, which is another animated thing, right? Okay. DreamWorks made The Bad Guys. Universal made The Sing, and there's Sing 2. I'm sure there'll be a Sing 3. Those movies are fun. They're just fun. There's nothing, I really feel like they get it. It's interesting that like there are other studios doing what Disney would have done 10, 20 years ago now and doing it better. And I think that the audience is definitely going to pivot. Satan West says, in Hollywood, people fail upward. 100%. Luke James says audiences have a duty to embrace it. I would agree. Otherwise, we'll get more crap movies. It wasn't content. It was an actual film. Yeah. I would say cinema, which doesn't happen often. Yeah. And Mike Likes Tacos says Disney would never make this. Okay, I will see it then. Yeah. Just Rand says, I like the CGI in the fight to make two men look like bears. Scars definitely hulked around like a bear. This movie was made with so much passion and attention to detail. We talk about that. We should get to the interview, actually. Is everybody ready? Is everyone ready to see this interview? And just a quick comment. Adam Iglesias says, A24 is doing Marcel the Shell. Makes no sense, but it looks better than a lot of Disney stuff. That trailer was at the movie last night when I saw The Bad Guys. They showed the Marcel the Shell. And I could tell the audience really liked it. It's weird, which is based on an old SNL like short film, a short film that was done by SNL. And it has sort of a foreign vibe to it, Marcel the Shell. But yeah, Adam Iglesias. Yeah, A24 doing that is like, it's sort of a weird, it's a weird stop motion animated movie with a tale about a little
shell,
little crustacean that wants to reunite with his family. Simple.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see it this week, in fact.
Yeah. So
if I can get the time set aside, yeah. So
there you go. Everyone's saying yes. Let's play this interview. Let's get to, and let me do a quick intro to this because I feel like I need to apologize to our audience here and say I had hoped that we would have Robert Eggers on live. We do have other directors that will be joining us live. We have the director of Chloe, Theo and Chloe. That's Chloe and Theo. It's Chloe and Theo. Filmmaker Monica Ord is going to be joining us in about 45 minutes. Monica will be here and we're going to talk about Chloe and Theo. So my goal is to bring you directors live that you can chat with. Didn't always work out. I said, you got to do the interview. Boom. Robert's doing interviews today. Had to do it over Zoom, so we couldn't do it over StreamYard. And so I did the interview, and I hope that I asked questions that I think you would have wanted me to ask. 15 minutes is not a long time. You'll see that Robert is in his hotel room with like a publicist in the background typing on a computer, and I'm in my living room. And if you look really closely, you can spot a lot of weird collectibles that are on my shelf if you look very closely. So this is the raw Zoom video that was recorded by the publicist at Focus. And so there you go. I will do my best. I will endeavor to better do that. And if an interview needs to be pre-recorded, I'll let you all know because I would like to get your questions and participation in that. So what can I say? And what can I say? I really, my goal is to kind of do something different with the Film Threat YouTube channel. And so here we are. Let's now get to this interview, and I'm going to play the video file. We'll chat about it on the back end. It's 15 minutes. I think I set up the context. And you can tell, I will say this whenever I had done film junkets in the past, okay? Whenever I'd done film junkets in the past, it's the only time I actually feel sorry for celebrities because they'll, trot you into a room. You have 4 minutes with Bruce Willis, and then you see just how it's just the same questions being asked over and over. It's always my goal to kind of ask different types of questions. So, I try to come up with things that are different, or at least go a couple deeper layers, but it's really difficult. And it's also like Robert Eggers is in a hotel room. He's like sitting there. This is after the world premiere. So he did it like this is the day after. And he's doing like round table 15 minutes with all these outlets that Focus has told him like, these are the important outlets. So let's watch the video right now, and we will talk about it on the back end, and we will discuss. And I hope that I asked questions that you would have wanted me to ask. And here we go.
I'll chat you. We're getting close to time.
Great. Ready to roll?
I'm so ready.
Great. Well, first of all, Robert, thank you for talking to me here at Film Threat. Just a huge fan of your work from The Witch, which just blew my mind. And I have a quick question about The Witch before we talk about The Northman. Every time I bring up the movie, sometimes some movie nerds will try to correct me and say it's the Vavitch. That was just a marketing thing, right?
It's not. Anyone who thinks it's the Vavitch is out of their mind. But basically, in the early modern period, you'll often see in large typefaces using two V's instead of a W. It was just a sort of you'll see like a caret, like a Latin W as well, but oftentimes you see it the two V's, and I just thought it looked cool and transportive, so that's why I did that.
And it totally works. It's great. For this film, you and Alexander Skarsgård, I think your clandestine meeting, just really contributed to making this thing work, and his appreciation for your attention to detail. Can you tell me about when the two of you first met, and he'd been wanting to make a Viking film for a long time? What was that meeting like, and what were some of the things you talked about in the conversation about the vision for this movie?
Well, yeah, we met at Cafe Mogador in the East Village. I was late. I don't know. We talked about sagas. We talked about mythology. It was a really nascent period for me in my understanding of Viking culture. Like I had read a little bit of Icelandic sagas and taken a trip to Iceland, and I had just kind of awoken a bit of interest there. Alex was talking about blood eagles, which at the time I didn't know what a blood eagle was, which is, for your readers, well, why don't you Google it? Actually, but yeah. So, but we were just nerding out and getting excited. Yeah. I mean, I think where things really started to get intense is when I, about a month later, sent Alex my first treatment, and the suggestion, which was my first whack at the story that became The Northman, and also my suggestion that Sean should co-write it with me.
The setting is practically a character in the film. Can you talk about how that influenced you?
Well, I mean, it was the landscapes of Iceland that got me inspired to pick up the Icelandic sagas in the first place, because I wasn't interested in Vikings before that. And I think, in the press notes, I think that I talk about the fact that, I usually turn to the art of the period that I'm and the culture that I'm portraying to kind of understand how the film should look visually. But Viking art is very stylized, and there's no atmosphere. So the landscapes and the elements really do so much work for the atmosphere of the film. So much work, and along with the fire and ice and mud and dung and flame and whatever else.
Can you talk about that? Just the brutality of this movie is something that I think people, almost everyone who comments about the film talks about that. How did you capture that type of realism? I mean, there are certain fights, many of them, where I just don't know how somebody didn't get really hurt. So how did you capture that?
I think the idea is just trying to think about it realistically. I mean, if we're really talking about realistically, some of the shield bashes that Alex gets fighting the undead Viking are a bit like over the top and not particularly realistic. However, like, you were fighting like a 7'1" tall corpse with superhuman strength, maybe it is realistic. But I think you just try to I think one of the main things is like sound design. It's still louder than it would be in reality, but like the sounds of the swords coming out of their scabbards is the sound of a piece of metal coming out of leather instead of metal from metal. Usually they go like shink, even though like that the noise would be utterly silent. We still have something, but it's more subdued. When you're working with in a big like battle scene, or here in this circumstance, like a raid of a village, so much of the dialogue of the crowd is done later. But we did, like, I found, like, we had a lot of extras who spoke Slavic languages, and we wrote like lines in this Proto-Ukrainian with this Ukrainian poet Yuri Andreevich, and they were like, we did a big session of them doing their lines while like screaming and really getting into it. And then when we did stuff in post, I think sometimes these crowd performers tend to just rely on their technique. But I was saying, like, we need to feel this. Like, this can't just be like a movie where like you understand that like these people's lives are being destroyed. Like, we need to feel that these people's lives are being destroyed. And so I need to ask you to like take the time to like actually get into character and experience like losing your child or your husband instead of just like screaming, so, and it's that kind of care that hopefully like in these places that like adds to the level of a kind of brutality that seems a little more believable in a film of this size.
Well, it definitely translates down to, simple details like, props and things that were used. There's even, it was mentioned in the press notes, bone flute players were involved. So what went into your research about the era?
Everything, everything. Like, Shona and I did a lot of research, but then once the film became real, we had the great fortune to bring on the world's finest Viking historians and archaeologists and to help us out. So I mean, there was no stone left unturned, basically.
And Alexander Skarsgård's contribution to the project, as a producer and someone who's wanted to tell a story that you were able to put together, what is the collaboration with the two of you working together? He seemed so committed to the role.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome to have an actor from the beginning who brings that kind of passion to it and that kind of dedication, and so he refused anything but perfection from himself. I mean, Alex has talked a lot about me sort of driving him to the edge of sanity when we were shooting the movie. But I mean, I can think of more than one time when Alex asked for another take because he felt he could do better.
And I also want to compliment you on the trailer for the film, which it doesn't ruin the movie in the sense that we're only seeing footage from perhaps the first third, maybe half of the film. And what I can only think of one other time where that was the case. That was The Dark Knight by Christopher Nolan. Are you involved in any of those marketing choices and keeping things secret? Because I will say it added to the enjoyment of the film. I must have watched that first trailer probably 50 times. And once it got to a certain point in the story, I said, I don't know where this is going. And that actually contributed greatly to, I think, the enjoyment, where so many films marketing these days kind of just ruin everything.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I'm very, very deeply involved, but I'll also say that it was really Focus's marketing team who felt strongly that we did need to communicate kind of the first act narratively in the first trailer. That it's not an IP movie that people know, and we need to communicate what this story is. The second trailer, which is more closely my brainchild, though again it was incredibly collaborative with the very talented team that Focus had. That's sort of what I probably would have wanted the first trailer to be, but they were right to do it the way they did it. They were very right to do it the way they did it. But yeah.
And what makes you so drawn to stories from the past? Quentin Tarantino said his favorite era is any time before cell phones. So, which I think is great. But what are your thoughts on that? Like great stories being told in the past.
I don't know. I don't know. But people ask me it all the time, and I wish I had a definitive answer. But my parents were interested in the past, and so was my grandfather. So I certainly had like people around me growing up that made me interested in them. But that no one cares about my childhood. Basically, like something that I've been saying lately is that growing up in a secular society, the sacred and the sublime aren't really around. And I think if using this movie, for example, in the Viking Age, there's no atheists, and their mythology and religion is just like, there's not a question of belief. It just exists. And I find that very interesting and compelling.
I don't know how much time I have, but I want to ask you about your writing process. If you have a moment, like what do you do for yourself to get in the zone? And what was your working relationship with Sion, if I pronounced that correctly?
Yeah. I listen to a lot of music, light a lot of candles and incense, keep the room dark, lots of creepy imagery on the walls. Sion's great to work with. He's super generous, egoless in the process. He's just brilliant, and he's so fast. But basically, I wrote a treatment. We went to Iceland together. I went to Iceland, visit him together. We wrote a longer treatment. Then he did an even longer one. I gave him a bunch of notes, and then he wrote the script, the first version. I gave him a lot of notes. Next version, then I revised that, and then we just passed the script and scenes and like lines and words back and forth, millions and millions of times, like all through the rest of the shoot. Because through post-production, there was like a little bit of additional photography, and there was also like tons of ADR to like really hone and get this thing precise. So it was an incredibly enjoyable collaboration, and I'm working with him again.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see what you do next, and I also can't wait to see the Northman again. Thank you so much, Robert, for talking to me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Cool. Take care.
Yep.
And we're back.
He's been through the ringer so far.
Well, I got the sense, and thank you. We're going to get to your chat questions and comments in just a second, but I feel that like it definitely got the feeling that he'd been doing this all day.
Yeah.
I mean, you heard the Freudian slip at the end, which a bunch of people pointed out, like the
I heard it.
Candles and incest. Okay, that is funny. It's a funny Freudian slip. A couple of super chats here. Let's get to them real quick. I want to thank, like right here, Infinite Main says, amazing interview. You made the most out of the short time given. Not my first rodeo, I'll say. Thank you, Infinite Main, for the $10. I do the best I can under the circumstances.
Yeah.
So what can I do? I'm very self-deprecating, very like self-critical. So I can't ever say anything nice about myself. I know. Maybe I should work on that. Snowmiser for $4.99 says, Robert, can you make a samurai movie? I feel your directing style and storytelling would make a great samurai film. Unfortunately, it was a pre-recorded interview. That's something that I would have liked to have asked. I kind of tried to ask like about making films in the past. That's something that Quentin Tarantino said. Like he would make a movie in any era before cell phones. He kind of is not into the modern era at all. There was another super chat earlier.
Well, I'll answer that question for him. Yes, I'll make a samurai movie.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, look, it'd be nice. But
It'd be nice, yes.
Yeah. Wait, there was another 1999 super chat here. How do I click on that?
I think you got them all.
I posted it up. Did I get them all?
Yeah, actually, you posted it up during the interview.
Okay, cool. Ken Bogus says, I have a choice today. Nick Cage or Northman. Help me decide, Chris. You're my only hope. What to watch first? Well, it depends on your mood. If you want a good comedy, the Nick Cage movie, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, is great. You should watch the review that Alan and I did after you see it. Check that out. The Northman, if you want something a little more heavy, I mean, something that's heavy, epic, Viking by way of Macbeth, go see The Northman. It's also brutal and bloody and gory and borderline art film. But so Nick Cage movie is more light. Northman is heavier. You choose. Depends on your mood. Let's get to some of the comments that were starred. Maybe you can help me, Alan, and star some of the comments. Redmond says, I think the relationship between main characters should have been more fleshed out. They kind of go from strangers to making babies. I think we got to that one. Fletcher Williams says, press junkets are their modern day kissing the Don's ring. In a sense, I mean, when I worked at G4, I did a lot of junket interviews. In fact, I interviewed Johnny Depp once at a junket in Paris, and he was stoned the whole time and he spoke very slow. So seeing him in court is pretty much the same as when he was high out of his mind. And I have a video maybe to defend myself on this. Patrick Lemire says he looks like a Northman fresh out of his lighthouse. And good job with the Vivitch, says Adam Iglesias. It's funny that I was just like, I've had friends correct me. No, I call that movie the Vivitch. It's like, no, and he pointed out like that's how a W was back then. It was, I think it added to sort of the, like the way that the movie was marketed. But I love that he said that anyone who calls it the Vivitch is an idiot, is a moron. Patrick Lemire says, I honestly think the Vivitch was a graphic choice that made SEO work, which is a common word. Vivitch is highly uncommon. Yes, and he wanted to kind of change, like witches have become comical, right? So in just popular culture, when you go to Party City during October and you see witches and they're like these cartoon witches, they're not very threatening, they're not scary. What Robert Eggers wanted to do, and you can see he talks about this in interviews, he wanted to take the witch and take the concept of a witch and make it scary again, because the witch had been kind of, become comical in a cartoon. Infinite Main says, hard-hitting question off the start. Well, I wanted a sort of dumb, embarrassing question. Maybe I pissed him off. I have no idea. Holy hand grenades. In Spanish, W is sometimes said double V, which means double V. Double V, which means double V. Interesting. Beowulf's Revenge says, blood eagles are brutal. There you go. Adam Iglesias again says he talks so genuinely about his stuff. He's so passionate, and it's nice to see a director talk about stuff he enjoys. Max One Up, the Dark Souls boss fight for the magic sword was awesome. Jack D. Ripper, I fought many undead Vikings. It was spot on. That's great. Infinite Main says Eggers looks like he could have been in the film. Actually, yeah, he probably could have been like someone in the background for sure. Steve R says, I think you undersold yourself on this, Chris. Interview is fine. He's going really in depth. Well, thank you for that. Like I said, I'm very self-deprecating, and I never feel like I do a good enough job. Like I can always do better. So I never kind of leave an experience with like, great job, Chris. I'm always like, I could have done better on that. I could have written that better. I could have done a better thing. This goes for anything I do creatively. I'm always like, you could have done better. Ken Bogus says, Eggers going to fall asleep. Oh, and Positive Fandom. This is the one. I think we put it up. Positive Fandom for 1999. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Mr. Eggers, congratulations on such a spectacular film. I think you are leading the way towards more in-depth films our society needs right now. Thank you, Chris, as always. And a heart and a diamond emoji. I'll take that. Thank you, Positive Fandom. Infinite Main. All the Skarsgårds seem deeply invested in their roles. Yeah, they're awesome. They should all be in a movie together at some point. Patrick Lemire, Eggers looks like he's on his 20th interview of the day. Yeah, I kind of got that sense too. He's just sort of like in the hotel room. He's just had the world premiere, walked the red carpet, partied with people. And I talked to a friend of mine who went to the world premiere, who said that when he introduced Nicole Kidman, he's very aware of the AMC video where people clap. And it's like, yes, and here's where he made a reference to her AMC the AMC video, which everyone applauds when that comes on because they know the movie's coming on next. And it's just sort of it's cheesy. It's funny. Lagbait says you can kind of tell when he gets involved in the questions and when he goes into typical question mode. That's typical. That's why I don't like to interview necessarily filmmakers when they're doing that, like one after the other, one after the other. It gets tiresome. And I feel, and I have empathy actually for, the people being interviewed. They're doing this all day. And some of the questions, I don't want to disparage people. I don't want to disparage anybody from, I don't want to disparage anybody from like any of my colleagues, say, who do junket type interviews, but I really wish they prepared more. And I really wish that sometimes I've seen some incredibly embarrassing questions like that are like of a personal nature. I really don't care about the personal life of a particular, celebrities. I wish, like I say, in many ways, I wish I knew less about the personal lives of celebrities. Having said that, he said, you don't want to hear about, my life as a kid. If I had more time, I probably would have pressed him on that. Like, how did, like a lot of things that, that we grew up with, whether it's novels we've read when we were kids or experiences that we've had, can really resonate into adulthood, right? I mean, like, wasn't Avatar for James Cameron like a story he wrote as a kid? It maybe kind of feels like it. Anyways, Goober says, Valhalla appears to have a great dental plan. That's pretty funny. Let's see. Did I miss some super chats here?
No, I think you got them all.
Cool.
The other interview questions I hate are when they want to do games or something like that. Something unrelated to the movie, but what they think is who'd you do or kill, marry.
Yeah, like those questions, like those embarrassing questions. I find those, like, I feel embarrassed, like, for people who do that job and ask questions. I like to go more in depth to so yeah. Let's see. There was a question here I wanted to get to. Is RRR. Yeah, Positive Fandom. Yes. There you go. RRR. Which is your favorite movie until now, asks Indian Cinema. Well, I would say this year, let's just start with this year as like my favorite movie. We'd be here all day. We'd having a 2-hour conversation as I debate myself about what my favorite. But I will say this, I believe this year, 2 films I've seen that my favorite of the year are RRR and The Northman. So far this year. Some might say, why am I not saying The Batman? I enjoyed The Batman and had many, many problems with it. Avatar was visually stunning. True, Beowulf's Revenge. But it's interesting. I think like how a director grew up does inform, like, what experience did they have? Did they live in another part of the world and then come to the United States? Or, what experiences did they have as a kid? And, if I have an opportunity to interview Robert Eggers, I doubt he'll remember me, but I will follow up on that. Patrick Lemire says, people did not automatically have terrible teeth back in the day. No bags of chips and sugar in the Viking diet. That's true. Solomon Thornton, Chris, what is your favorite Batman film? Mine is Batman Returns. I would say The Dark Knight, followed then by Batman Begins. And then maybe the Batman, sort of a battle between the Batman and The Dark Knight Rises, kind of in there. I do like the Keaton Batman movies, but there are major issues with those movies, which maybe we'll just do a Batman live stream and I'll go through every Batman movie and give you my thoughts, because I have a lot of thoughts on every single Batman movie. And my argument for the reason that the 89 Batman movie is not amongst my favorites, even though I really love Michael Keaton in that role, Batman has very little screen time. And the hero's journey, that is the traditional path that you see in the film, the hero's journey is taken up by the Joker. The Joker is the character that we're following. And the movie isn't even about the Joker or Batman. It's actually about an intrepid reporter trying to figure out who Batman is, except the audience already knows, which is like a waste of screen time. There's so many problems with that 89 Batman. I did not love it when it came out like everybody else did. Okay. Yes.
So real quick, the Adam West Batman. What's your
I love it. I love the Adam West Batman, and that Adam West Batman movie, which is fantastic, which blew my mind as a kid. I saw it when I was 5 years old on my 5th birthday. I got to see that movie and it blew my mind. We're going to have to do a separate Batman live stream, maybe when it's like a bad week for movies, which could be very soon. The chat is now talking about Batman. You know what I'm going to do? Let's a couple of other things. We have the director of Chloe and Theo coming on very soon, but I wanted to show, I have a video here that I wonder if we have time to show it. I wonder if we have time to show this video. I'm not sure if we do. We may not. We may not. All right, just a second. As I look for this, and just, we're talking about the Batman. I think it's important that I show this. That is a short animation piece done by my friend Bobby Schwartz of Dual Animal Studios. He just sort of whipped that up, and there you go. Another reminder to please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 40,000 subs. I'm going to unveil probably the most bizarre video that you'll ever see. I'm going to look for there's a video clip I really want to show. And I may have to, let's see if I can find it. Maybe I can just share the video. I'm going to share a video file here if I can find it. That is, I mentioned earlier that I had interviewed Johnny Depp. It was for a movie called The Tourist, which was honestly, it was like a really, really cheesy, it was a very cheesy, like romantic comedy with Angelina Jolie and Johnny Depp. So I interviewed Johnny Depp. He just smelled like weed. I'm not gonna lie. He smelled straight up like weed. And then I also had the opportunity to interview Angelina Jolie, and it was not the first time I had interviewed her. And so let's just say this. I've interviewed a lot of interview subjects at my time when I was at G4, and throughout my career, I've interviewed a lot of famous people. I don't care. I don't get nervous. I don't give a shit. Walk in the room, whatever. There is only one time I have gotten nervous during an interview and I got flummoxed and lost my train of thought. And it's both times I interviewed Angelina Jolie. And let me explain. I want to defend myself. For a second here. Okay. She is the most stunningly beautiful woman. And I normally would do a thing when I walk in a room and you're meeting a celebrity and you've got like literally 10 seconds to establish rapport before they go 3, 2, 1, go, 4 minutes, and then they go wrap it up, right? And then like last question, wrap it up, right? You have 4 minutes. So you get a short amount of time. And I come in prepared and I usually say a couple like things to kind of like just break the ice, break the mood, and hey, I'm going to throw you some fun questions. We're going to have a decent, I know you're here to sell the movie, so let's do that. But let's also do something entertaining instead of something that's boring, So I try to actually come up with stuff that's clever. So I interviewed Angelina Jolie twice, once for a movie where she plays like a spy. It's like an action movie, and then for Tourist. And both times I got nervous and like sort of felt like an out of body experience and like lost my train of thought. And that has never happened to me. It's only happened during the 2 times I interviewed Angelina Jolie. I'm embarrassed to say, because she did the thing that I always did, whenever I would walk in a room and I would kind of do that light banter or whatever, she did that to me. So I walk in and she was complimenting me. She said, "Oh my God, I love your jacket. Where did you get those?" Like, and I talked about the jacket I had on, which had these like custom buttons, and I had done them. And then I'm just like, wait, is she flirting with me? 100% Angelina Jolie was not flirting with me. I can just tell you that for sure. But she was just trying to relax me. And then I talked to other journalists that were there, and it's like, apparently that's a thing. It's one of those things where you get an energy in the room. You kind of like get a vibe. And the vibe I got was like so friendly, and like she was more interested in me than talking about the movie. And that totally threw me off. So I think
will it appear in the doc? That's what I want.
Well, it's probably not going to be in the doc about Attack of the Show. But we did do, when we were promoting the Kickstarter for Attack of the Show, what we did do is we put together some clips, and I have it's like a minute and a half, and it's me. Look, yes, it's me talking to Angelina Jolie. Where is this clip? I'm gonna see if I can upload it to our thing and just play it. It's short, and I'm just gonna play it just to go like, okay, right, here we go. It's me talking to Angelina Jolie and getting nervous with that setup in the comments of the comment. Am I getting roasted in the comments here?
A little bit.
All right, fine.
You guys could do a lot better.
Get Alan. Alan, who, by the way, I went and I got these pins because we're gonna do a graphic. Why can't I open this? What the hell? We'll talk about that after. All right, let's just watch.
Play the video.
Long-winded intro. With that long-winded intro, let's watch this clip.
And then you seem to be so believable in these roles. Because I don't want to say that. You just have abilities that are that sort of. Have you ever used your power of seduction for that's something that you look for, something because it seems like you're having a lot of fun.
I'm sure.
So, do you find that interesting? That you're so. Let's see. Thank you, the rabbit. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
All right,
you guys
fine.
did more to sell that movie than any other outlet.
Oh my God. All right. First of all, okay. It was cringe. Yes. Just one gun. Cringe. Yes, I know. Hannibal Grimm, she's having a field day. You needed the curb music, says Justin Falzone. Solomon Thornton says, this is the best interview ever. Yeah, it's me being flummoxed. And yes, I know.
And that's what they played on Attack of the Show? Or
well, they played that on Attack of the Show. Yes, they just wanted to embarrass me. Beowulf's Revenge says, wow, she's got you so flustered. Did you need a cold shower after? Yeah, and Holy Hand Grenades, dude, she was in her prime there. You have no idea. Shane,
yeah, she looked good.
You and I are cracking up. Look, I will show you my mistakes. I make no errors about myself. I try to be genuine about this stuff that we're doing here, and I'm not. Yes, I make mistakes. So Zax says, at least your pants stayed on. Just one gun. She loved it. But also, it was like the second time I blew an interview with her. Like, this was the second time. Shelby AC says, you did good. Ratzel says, let's see, what is Ratzel's got a comment here? That Billy Bob was a lucky fellow indeed. Yeah. Chris running out of the room, classic, says Infinite Main. Angelina Jolie was not made to be easy on the eyes for you, says RMF.
He was then.
Well, look, I mean, the movie is about a romance. The Tourist is it's cheesy. I'm not going to tell you it's a great movie. But it was a chance for Angelina Jolie and Johnny Depp to work together. And, they were big then. This is like maybe 2011 or so, around there, 2010, 2011. But so what can I say? Cavatino, Cavalryman, Shea, I would have been a deer in headlights. Look, it's weird because you walk in and there's an energy that's very giving. Like I walk in and she's just, there's a presence. If you've ever met, and I've met a bunch of famous people, you don't get that from everybody. And I feel like she was, she was definitely laid dark. She was amused. She was amused for sure. Was it any good besides cheesy? Says Read by Nature. I mean, it was fine. The Tourist, you can look it up. It's not a movie that, it's not a movie that will stand the test of time. And Cosmic Joker says, you certainly blew something. Lag Date says he got frost. Yeah, I think I did. And Shung Hu says it was good for her too. So I'll take it. Alan,
I've not got.
Is this just gonna is our live cast just gonna turn into like making fun of all my mistakes? Because I've got a lot of them. We could show. Look, we'll show another one just now, just because we're waiting for our next interview to come up here. But here's one here, real quick.
Chris Gore here at Spin Fusion in Los Angeles, where I come to find the latest and greatest in DVDs. On this edition of Asian Underground, prepare to have wisdom knocked into your brain with a high kick. A high kick. Oh, shit. Ow. Oh, my jeans.
Look, I'm just trying to entertain you all. Yeah, Scott Slaughterbeck, the one other person who's seen The Tourist besides me. The best thing about The Tourist was Venice. That's true. I mean, it's odd. They flew us to Paris to do the interview. So I remember being jet lagged and kind of out of it. You always have that sort of like, why am I awake and I shouldn't be awake? And that was the state in which I did that interview. And I blew it. And I had pre-written questions and I still blew it. Okay. So what can you do? Holy Hand Grenade says, please make it a permanent segment to watch embarrassing outtakes. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think we could totally do that. But look, do you want to join in the embarrassment? Look, I'll tell you how to do it. Do you want to join in the embarrassment? Here's how you can do it. Let me show you how. It's very simple. You can be a part of this. It's very easy. All you do is you send a self-addressed stamped envelope to Film Threat, 5042 Wilshire Boulevard, PMB 1500, Los Angeles, California, 90036. And just make a video that's like this and we'll show it on the channel. Just use the hashtag Film Threat Podcast.
Holy fucking shit, these reviews are delicious.
See? We'll feature you. Just post the video on Twitter or Instagram, wherever. Use the hashtag and get that sticker or whatever, and just say these reviews are delicious and drink. You could drink. Basically, that was a Coors Light. I can confirm that was a Coors Light for sure.
How's that taste?
Film Threat-alicious.
These movie reviews are delicious. Film Threat sucks.
These movie reviews are delicious.
Film Threat sucks. All right, one last one here. This was actually San Diego, if I remember correctly.
Shame. 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 Shame.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I thought that was fun. That was you had to be there. Very shortly, we have the director of Chloe and Theo is going to be joining us very shortly, which is going to be a lot of fun. We'll get into that. Some quick comments here from people. We'll be bringing Monica on in just a moment to talk about her film Monica and Theo. Late Art
Brilliant.
says, shame. I love that. Oh, I missed Game of Thrones when it was good. Holy Hand Grenade says, man, those are good. And a Read by Nature says, was that a real tattoo on that dude's shoulder or just a crappy doodle? I have no idea. So there you go. Now, to prepare for this interview, what you should all do, not right now, but after the interview later, go watch the trailer for Chloe and Theo. You need to check it out. It is our mission here at Film Thread to bring you filmmakers so you can ask them questions, because I know that a lot of the people as part of the growing Film Thread community here on our channel, they are interested in making their own films. And what I love is when you talk to indie filmmakers, they're very good about sharing advice. And so let's welcome Monica onto the Film Threat podcast here. Monica, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. This is awesome. Wow. Look at that. What are those books or magazines in the background? That's awesome.
My God. You know what those are? I live in a guest house in Bel Air, and the people that own the property is Richard Rush, who made The Stuntman with Peter O'Toole. And,
oh my God.
Yeah, he was nominated for Academy Award. Unfortunately, he died last year, but he was just an amazing man. Those are all scripts that he either turned down or shot.
Wow. That's first of all, The Stuntman with Peter O'Toole. If you have not seen that movie, amazing film. You're getting a lot of love in the chat. People saying, welcome, Monica. Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Hey,
Thank
Monica,
you.
Solomon Thornton. Hi, Monica. That's great. They're loving you. This is awesome. We will get to the questions in the chat right now, but I want you to tell us about Chloe and Theo and what inspired the film.
Oh my God. So first of all, I'm not a filmmaker. My background is disease research. And so I worked in South Africa with end-stage AIDS and cancer patients for 5 years prior to making the movie. And I had a relationship with Richard Branson because Richard Branson had funded a lot of the AIDS work. And so on one of my trips back, a producer named Lloyd Phillips, who is a wonderful human being, unfortunately also passed away a couple years ago, but he had been to a climate change event and he had met a man named Theo Ikumek, who was a Inuk person from the Arctic. And he had told him all these stories about what was going on in the Arctic and climate change and, kind of went on. And he was very frantic about getting his message out. And so Lloyd called me and said, you're a do-gooder. Why don't you help him, do something for him? And I made a comment that I regretted instantly because I said, Lloyd, I'm up to my eyebrows in AIDS and cancer right now. And he goes, Monica, 50 million people might die of those diseases, but we're all going to die from climate change. And so I felt awful instantly and thought, yeah, you're right. Okay, what can I do? So I called Theo and ended up speaking to him. And he wanted to know if I knew any person that was famous that could come on a dog sled journey just to witness what was going on. They were going on a 3-month journey and they were going to visit 5 remote Inuit villages and talk to all the elders, and they were going to tell about the changes and all of that. So I made a master list of anyone famous that I knew. And of course, Richard was on the top. And I called him, and 6 minutes later, he called me back and said, yeah, I'll go. Let's do it. And so we went. A month later, we were in minus 45 degrees in the Arctic, traveling by dog sled. And we did it for 3 months. We slept on the ice. We visited each village. We talked to all the elders through translators. And it was just the most mind-blowing experience, as you can imagine. But we learned so much. And I came back almost depressed because it just was so tragic. And there didn't seem like we could stop it, basically. And there were a lot of changes. And so we decided that instead of making a documentary, because we shot 200 hours of footage, and if there's any great editors out there who want to help me do something with that footage, I would love to hear from them, but it's just sitting on a shelf right now. because when we looked at it, it just wasn't the right message. We flew to the Arctic with a man who owns an airline, and we're talking about climate change, and that man is standing on the ice in a $10,000 snowsuit saying we all need to change. It just seemed so hypocritical to me. And I know Richard is the most amazing person. He gives millions and millions of dollars to climate change and so many other causes, but it's impossible to go to each theater and explain that to each person. So I just didn't think it was the right thing to do. So we switched gears and decided to make a feature film, and we decided to tell Theo's story, but in a way with some humor and, you know, enough where people would find it amusing and it just wasn't all doom and gloom, so people would watch it. So Cassian Elwes, who I also knew, he jumped in and helped me considerably. He helped us cast, he helped do everything that we needed. He brought a lot of people on board that helped as well. And we just got a director named Esna Sands. He wrote the script and we just cast it and then just went about shooting it. And it was an incredible experience. And a lot of the things that are in the movie that people don't realize, the man in the movie is Theo. He's the original Inuit man that I met, and he played himself because there was no way we could cast him. He's just such a different character. And he's a lot like, I'm so sorry, I'm doing this on my phone. I don't know if that popped up.
No, it looks good.
Okay, good. And so he played himself, and he was with Dakota Johnson and Mira Sorvino, and I can't believe he did it. Like, he just did such a good job. But a lot of the little things in the movie are actual things that happened with Theo in real life, and the director would write them in. Like, every day he would put new little nuances in that Theo noticed about how we live our life and how we waste and how, you know, what he was seeing through his eyes. So it was just amazing. It was an incredible experience.
But so this movie is, I mean, it was inspired by, it sounds like, you know, you kind of thought you were making a documentary and then went and made a narrative film. How do you think audiences, because I've seen the trailer and I have not seen the movie, but it doesn't seem overly preachy at all. It seems more of a human story.
Yeah, we tried not to make it preachy, but it honestly was difficult because, you know, my background, as I said, is AIDS research. And what I knew from experience is if I did a presentation and I only talked about stats and figures and how many people were dying, people in the presentation would drink their coffee, they'd look at their watches, and they'd forget about it in 15 minutes. But if I told a human story about a particular woman who I knew who had to sell herself to feed her children in Africa, and, you know, then this happened, I could have people 3 years later that I would see somewhere and they'd go, oh my God, that story you told, and it would stick with them. So we knew that a story about one person was going to be a lot more interesting to people than a big climate change documentary. So that's why we decided to tell Theo's story. So, you know, it's based on a true story, but a lot of it is, you know, there was some humor in it. There's a lot that happens between him and Dakota. We made the homeless people heroes because they're very similar to the Inuit people. The Inuit people don't waste anything. If they kill an animal, first of all, they pray and they thank the universe for the animal and they thank their gods for the animal and that they can eat. Then they take every bit of it, the skin, the teeth, the skull, the oil for oil lamps, everything is used. And it's the same with anything. And the homeless people are the same. You know, they'll pick up something and they'll use it and they'll keep it with them, but they're kind of very nomadic. And so we're the Inuit. So we decided to kind of make a parallel there. And in the movie, Theo meets a group of homeless people that decide that they're taking him on as their project and they want to help him save the world. And it gives them something to live for. And when we shot in New York, it was important to me to use real homeless people and pay them. And so I ended up getting fined because you're not allowed on a union film. You're not allowed to use people. You have to use actors, which I didn't know. But to be honest, I don't care because I'd rather get fined, because we were able to use about 60 homeless people and they got to work for 3 full days, and we fed them with craft services just like the rest of the crew. And it was a great experience. I loved every minute of it.
Well, I got, and this is maybe a cheesy comparison, but you know, having seen the trailer, I got sort of Crocodile Dundee vibes.
Totally.
I mean, in a good way, like a fish out of water story of like, what is this world like? Let's get to our comments. We have a lot of comments and some questions, and you know, we're happy that we're having you here on It's Earth Day. Right? It's Earth Day today. I totally like, oh yeah.
We totally planned it that way.
It's like we planned it. Yeah. But also like
that's great. Yeah.
The movie is out and available, is that right? On video on demand.
Yeah, I'm amazed, honestly. Vision Films has done such an incredible job, because the first time around it didn't get out on a big scale, you know, even with Richard Branson and John Paul DeJoria, and even James Cameron helped me at one point. But it just didn't go that far. But this time around, years later, it's on every channel. It's on Hulu, it's on Vudu, it's on Tubi, it's on Amazon Prime. It's everywhere. So I'm thrilled.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Let's get to these comments and questions. Okay. So here we go. Side Hustle Life LLC says, I love Chloe and Theo. So good. Perfect Earth Day movie. Beowulf's Revenge says, helping in AIDS and cancer is nothing to be ashamed of. Yeah. Holy Hand Grenade says, that reminds me, it's Earth Day today. Beowulf's Revenge says, sounds fantastic, though minus 45 is really cold.
Yes.
Andrea McKinnon, and if you love Dakota Johnson, the cast is incredible. Andrew,
thank you.
1234545 says, just checked out the trailer. Looks great. Scott Slaughterbeck says, Greenland is awesome. Holy Hand Grenades says, oh man, awesome. And then Scott Slaughterbeck, humans live at the South Pole and the Gobi Desert. We ain't going to vanish. Yeah, I take a more glass half full approach to like climate change. I think the climate's going to change no matter what. I think it's always going to change. And I think that we are so resourceful. Humans are so adaptable. I have faith in humanity. I think that, you know, we should be less wasteful. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. We are, especially when you look at food packaging and the way that we do certain types of things. This is what always kills me with the gas prices being what they are, is you still see giant lines at Costco to save 10 cents or 15 cents, or you see a giant line at In-N-Out Burger when you can get out of your car and not waste a gallon of gas waiting to get a burger. These are just obvious things that to me always like, I don't know. What can I say?
No, but you're right. You're right.
Yeah. Like there's just sort of simple things that to me are just common sense. And I just believe in humanity and our ability to adapt and to innovate. I think we are incredible creatures and we can always do better for sure. Toker 88 says, a measured discussion of climate change is fine. The alarmist panic and demand stuff is not my cup of tea. So I would say to Toker 88, have an open mind for sure. But yeah, I think there needs to be, because here's what I'm concerned about is kids. Yeah. When I see so much of the climate change being like, if we don't change this in 10 years, everything is gonna like we're in trouble. And I don't know if I agree with that. Like I actually have an issue of Newsweek magazine from 1969 that talks about climate change in it and how the world's gonna end. And I think that narrative is turning people off because one, I don't know that how entirely true that is. So I would debate. I think that that should be up for debate. And secondly, I do believe that that's hurting kids. When kids look at the future, am I going to start a family and have kids and my own children and contribute to, you know, I think it's in some ways the alarmist panic is actually contributing to depression in kids and teens because they're being told that they have no future. So I think that this is just my personal opinion. about this, and here we are discussing this on Earth Day, is I think that I agree with Toker88. There needs to be a measured discussion about it, because I actually think when you look at the rates of depression in teens, it's off the charts. And I think social media and being sold a depressing future are the two things that are contributing to it. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. And there's, if you have any thoughts on what I just said, but I feel like dialing the rhetoric back from being so dystopian to being more hopeful might actually might be a more positive way to have the conversation, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I honestly, I agree with you 100%. And it's one of the reasons that we did see a lot of things that were very alarming. But we didn't include a lot of them in the film because we wanted to make it more about, because really the answer, it's not only climate change. It's the fact that people now in this day and age, we've lost a sense of community. Like we don't care about each other. And if we did, it would solve multiple different things, not only climate change, but so many other things. And so the film is definitely about Theo and climate change, but it's more about caring about humanity. And if you watch it, you'll see what I mean. And that's what our hope was. There's a great little YouTube that somebody put on, and it's called The Story of Stuff. And I would tell anybody watching to watch that YouTube, because it's done in a cartoon form, and it's the perfect way to show how we need to change. And it's a whole little cartoon about, you know, how in the beginning in the United States, the government was telling us spend, 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 because we were trying to get the economy bigger, and we were trying to, you know, make the United States. And it was so successful that now it's just out of hand. And the one thing that I really realized by just going up to the Arctic, I mean, I've worked with a lot of indigenous groups because of South Africa and the AIDS work, and I've worked in China. So I understand a lot about the communities compared to what we have. And I mean, in South Africa, if you're in Soweto and you don't have food for the day, then your neighbors will all pitch in and give you food for that day. And the next day, it might be somebody else, and then you help them. There's just such an amazing sense of community. Whereas here, we could live in an apartment building for 10 years and not even know anybody else in the building. Like we don't, because we're so successful in the way that we have our own places, our own cars, our own everything, we don't have to associate with each other, because we don't need a ride somewhere. We don't need a place to stay or any of those kind of things. But what it's done is make us so separate from each other, to the point where now I feel like depression is caused because people aren't able to talk about what's going on with them, because it's almost like, well, if you have problems or you're going through anything, you're a weak person. And that's just not the case. Like we all go through hard times. We all go through good times. So what the Story of Stuff does is it just shows you how much we waste. And that's a big point, is that we use things for such a short period of time, throw them away, and get a new one, and get a new one, and get a new one. There's really no other country like us as far as wasting. And it was so apparent with Theo, because if you spend a few days with Theo, he notices everything because it's not normal to him. In the Arctic, ships come in a couple times a year. I mean, the Arctic there's nothing there. It's just completely barren. It's just ice most of the year. And so you can't grow anything there. You can't produce any food there. So the Inuit people live off the land, and they eat mostly meat. Their diet is 90% meat, which is mind-blowing. But they don't waste anything, as I said. So when we flew here on the plane, and they had given everybody their trays of food, and then it came time for the hostess to come and pick them all up, and he was watching her throw away food after food after food, and he just looked at me and he goes, "Oh my God, like if there was a way that we could take all these trays, everybody in the Arctic would eat every single day, and they would never, not have food or anything." Because for him, they have to go hunt their food. They live like we did hundreds of years ago. Like it just, and there was one Inuit man who was very upset one day, and we have some of that footage, and we didn't use it because it's in the documentary part of it. And he's talking and he's saying, you don't know what it's like to live, how we have to live. You just walk into your grocery store, you're on your cell phone, you just pick out whatever you want from all over the world, and you never think, how did that thing of lettuce get to me? You don't think of, oh, at first these people had to grow it and they had to go through all of that. Then the shipping people had to put in their side. And then finally this happened. And then finally it gets to me. We just don't have kind of respect for how we get things because we're just so used to having everything. It's not insulting and it's not preachy. I'm exactly the same way. But because of the situation I was so grateful to go through with Theo, it made me more aware of, you know, how much I was wasting or how spoiled we really, really are, because most people do not live like us. We are so lucky. So now I just kind of have more reverence for how I'm getting things, or how lucky I am, or how I can go to a store and get anything I want, or get, you know, go to the hospital if I'm sick or anything like that, because they don't have any of those things in the Arctic. Well, so it wasn't. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I will say on a couple comments is one, I just feel grateful, like where I live, you know, and the access and things that I have. I would say that like not knowing your neighbors is more of a city thing, probably more of an LA thing. I feel very fortunate, like where I live in Pasadena is kind of like the Midwest. And I would
I love Pasadena.
Pasadena is the best. And if you really want to get to know people, go to a dive bar. You get to know people really. That's why I have my best conversations. And I would also encourage folks to, like, I do what I call urban hiking. So I like to walk places. So I live in Pasadena is a very walkable city. I'll never not live somewhere that's not walkable, because it's sometimes, because I spend a lot of time in front of a screen. I like to just walk, throw in some AirPods, listen to a podcast while I'm like walking all through my city several miles. And then I'll usually end up at the 35er in Pasadena. But I would just encourage, that's how you get to know your neighbors, is you walk around the neighborhood and you look them in the eye and you say hi. And what's weird is, and this is maybe an LA thing, is I will smile, look at someone in the eyes, and I'll say hello. And they're kind of taken aback, like, why are you saying hi to a stranger? What do you want from me? And it's really Midwest. And I usually say howdy, even though I'm from Detroit, Michigan area. Like, I still say howdy. I think it's because I love the South. All the times I've spent in the South, going to Atlanta, Austin, Texas, and among other places, Birmingham, Alabama, another great city. So I'd say get to know your neighbors, and also just appreciate, what we have. And we could all be less wasteful. But I think a lot of it is the companies, right? Like, I don't blame consumers as much as I blame the companies that provide this stuff. You know, whether it be our diet, which they say the food pyramid is completely wrong, that all meat diet is probably better for us. It's how that's keto right there. Right.
Right.
You know, so, you know, it's weird. I also just think experiencing other cultures does make you kind of take a different look at yourself and how you do things.
Definitely.
And for sure. And what we value. A lot of comments here. So I want to get to the comments. Scott Slaughterbeck says, Ilusiet, I can't pronounce that. I'm so sorry. Ilusiet, Greenland is a great place to visit. Satan West, referencing you're hiring homeless people for your film. Satan West says, damn, she got fined for that. She seems genuine, though. So there you go. Scott Slaughterbeck says, climate change is like wealth change. Winning the lottery is wealth change. So is bankruptcy. Read by Nature says, I think the doomsayers turn people off to the message and encourages apathy, not action. I agree. I see this in young people, like people in their 20s going like, well, why would I have kids? Why would I have a house? It's so wasteful. I feel like the messaging has to change. The doom and gloom messaging about the future of this country. And I think a lot of it is due to current leadership, and I say on all sides. Okay, I'm not pointing a finger at any particular. There needs to be a positive view of this country. And when you look at past leaders, the ones that I have loved the most and the ones I've admired the most are ones that have a positive vision of the future of our country. And we're not hearing it from anybody. You got to get more positivity because you have no idea how that shifts the conversation. Zach says that's because you're an entrepreneur, Chris, and you can't afford waste. It's a good thing. Yeah, I'm a small business owner, right? So I own Film Thread. I pay people who work for me. I have to pay for this. Like I'm not wasteful. So, and I also donate a lot of stuff. I donate, and I'll buy stuff from my local Goodwill. B-roll says people who drive across the town to save a nickel on gas prices. The ultimate. I'm SMH. What's SMH?
Shake my head.
Yeah, shake my head. Okay, now I know what that is. I thought it had something to do with something else. I'm so sorry. Holy hand grenades, human party, no doubt, but the impacts humanity is having on the world are impacting climate change in a way it previously has never fueled within the past. We don't really know what awaits. I agree, but I am a hopeful. When you look at the history of humanity, I am hopeful, and I think that your movie, Monica, is a glimmer of hope, because, like I say, I got the Crocodile Dundee vibes, and I think that's a good thing. Bethel Games says Gen X thought we would not have a future. Now we're 3 generations past the no future message. I just see how it impacts my own kids. My kids are in their 20s, and I see like how it affects their decision making. The messaging has got to be hopeful that we actually can have an impact and do something positive. And I think part of that has to do with the choices were presented. I don't blame people for just buying what's on the shelves because that's what's there. I don't blame people for seeing bad movies that I would not recommend because, well, that's just what's at the theater. I'm just going to go see X film, whatever that is. I try to steer them away from those choices, try to diversify your media diet so you're not just living off the latest big Hollywood blockbuster. So B-roll says the story of stuff is essential viewing. Thumbs up from the B-roll. So check that out. Alan is going to find the video and he's going to put the link in the description of this video.
Good.
So
I don't know,
Alan.
What am I looking for? Oh, the story of stuff.
Yeah, and you're going to put that in the link in the description for this video. Solomon Thornton says, social media to me can be so toxic, and I hate the fact that young teenagers want to live by what they see on social media instead of being true to themselves and being more kind. Love that message, Solomon. VDR, my depression era grandma would get so mad when I took her out to eat and they give her too much food. Okay.
Yeah.
VDR, my grandma would just tell stories of like, I was just trained to not waste food at all. You ate what was on the plate. And that, to this day, my grandma's in my head when I'm grocery shopping. I'm not going to buy something I'm going to throw away. I'm going to buy something, and I'll keep canned goods, for like, just because you got to keep that stuff on hand. But yeah, VDR. Okay. Maybe our grandmothers were friends. But yeah, my grandmother and my grandfather grew up in the Depression era. He told me stories about, hey, they'd have 1 potato for 6 people, and that was dinner. So when those experiences inform like how you live your life. Moving on, holy hand grenades. They use all the animal after a hunt. Truly admirable. Great comments here, Monica. I appreciate your patience with going through them.
No, I love these. I love this
discussion. Infinite Main, I agree. Wish people knew more about harvesting their own food. They'd be less wasteful. When I was a kid, my grandmother took us out and we would pick berries. They had a raspberry garden. She'd make her own raspberry jam. They'd take us picking apples. So we'd have to pick the apples. And we would go to these farms where they'd come in and they'd weigh your basket. Then they'd write a little note of like how much your basket weighed. You'd fill it up. And then they just charged you by the weight. And she had a pantry where they would can goods and they made everything. We would go out to dinner maybe once or twice a year when I was a kid. That's it. Now we live in a society where I see like kids, like, why are you ordering and spending $30 to get Starbucks DoorDash to your house? I could spend $30 at the grocery store and eat for a week, or at least when I was younger, I could do that. Not so much anymore. Holy hand grenades. I live in a farming county. It's gorgeous out here. I learned a lot growing up here about the supply chains. Thank you, holy hand grenades. That's nice to know. Micah P, a good thing to do is make a gratitude list.
That's a great thing to do. I agree with that.
You make a gratitude list. I see these people like that are like, and I'll allow myself to be upset about something for a day. Then I got to like, okay, pull myself up on my bootstraps, look around and see what I have and the people I have in my life, and I'm very appreciative. Micah P, thank you for that. RMFX says the world won't end in our lifetimes, but our current way of life will change drastically and become really uncomfortable. I think we have to take a look at, how we've kind of grown beyond, and maybe there's better, more efficient ways even to design cities, right? Like I won't live in a city that's not walkable, or a neighborhood that's not walkable. I used to live in Los Feliz, and that's a very walkable city. There's a movie. I have to live walking distance to a movie theater is what I realized, and restaurants and bars. And I walk to Trader Joe's, and it's like, what can I carry? 2 big bags, and that's it. So that's all the groceries I'm getting. I recommend that. Side Hustle Life LLC. How did you get Dakota Johnson and Mira Sorvino to be in Chloe and Theo? Question for you, Monica.
God, because we just did the casting, and I honestly can't say enough about Dakota, because when we did the casting, it was the first time I ever sat in a room, and did that, where the people come in, they do the side, and then they leave, and it's one person after another. And so the director let me sit in on it, and I was so excited. But what I did wrong was, every time somebody came in and they did it, I'd be like, oh, that was so good. That was so good. Because I couldn't believe that they just come in, do the side, and then they walk out and nobody says anything. And I felt so bad. So right away I would say, oh, you did so good. That was so good. And they'd be kind of shocked and then leave. And the director would be like, oh my God, don't say anything. You're not supposed to say anything. And I could barely do it. I had to sit on my hands and just stare, because it seemed so rude to me. But we ended up, seeing one person after another for the part of Chloe. And there were a couple actresses at the time that were bigger than her, because she only did 50 Shades right after. And I can't even tell you how much that helped us. But so when she did it the first time, she was a little nervous. It was, she hadn't done a ton of work yet. And then she felt bad about how she did, but she was still in the top 5, I think. So she wrote me a letter, and I still have it. She wrote me a long letter about how one of the reasons she became an actress is because she wanted to do parts like this, where it actually made a difference, and that this would be her absolute dream. And, please pick me. And then she flew back from Los Angeles, because she had already left and we were in New York. She flew back on her own dime, and we were scouting different areas, and she came on a rooftop and said to the director, I am Chloe, like that. And so wow. And so she read again. She was in the the callbacks, and she just blew everybody away. Like, there was nobody else it could be but her after that, because she wasn't nervous the second time, and she was incredible. Wow. And I think she did a fantastic job. I really do. She's very quirky, which she was supposed to be. She's very genuine. Like, you can really feel her heart in the movie. And so I just can't say enough about her. And then it helped, like I said, it helped us so much, because when we cast her, a couple of people, like funders, were saying, well, but if you cast the bigger names, more people are going to see it and all of that. But we really wanted her. And so we went with her, and the director went with his gut. And it couldn't have turned out better, because a year later she did 50 Shades, and it just skyrocketed, and we got distribution because of Dakota Johnson. And Mira Sorvino was fantastic as well. When the director wrote it, he was writing it as real life. So the character of Mira is named Monica, and she's the one that he meets that tries to help him get his message out. So she followed me around everywhere I went and tried to pick up like things that I do. And it was so funny to see somebody like do a part and then say something that you say. Like, I say to people, good job. I say that all the time. I don't know why, it's a habit. And she did it on her own. There's a scene where she opens the door and she didn't do the line. She said, good job, like that. And I burst out laughing. But she picked up like so many, I can see why she won an Academy Award, because she picked up so many little mannerisms that I have. And it was bizarre to see somebody do that. But they were both fantastic, and we were incredibly lucky to get both of them. Both of them, to answer his question, came on board because they genuinely cared about the movie. They cared about the content. And so did the crew. I cannot say enough about the crew, because think about it. I was a completely green producer. I had never made a movie. And to get your first movie actually on the screen, and then to get it on all of these channels and everything, I only now realize how lucky and fortunate I am, because now I know a lot of filmmakers and they'll say, oh, my first movie, it didn't even go anywhere. We ran out of money and, you know, it never got finished. Or James Cameron helped me at one point because it was a climate change film. Ted Turner had a climate change event in Aspen, and he asked me to come and speak at it. And to be honest, I really didn't even look at what I was supposed to do. I just went there and thought, I'll wing it, you know, whatever questions they ask me, I'll be fine. And I'm just going to show a little clip of some of the footage because it hadn't been edited yet. So I get there and I'm sitting on the one chair, and there was another one beside me, and I didn't even know there was another person that was going to be interviewed with me. And it was a massive crowd, and I was thinking, God, why would all these people come to see me? And all of a sudden the doors opened like God, and in walks James Cameron from like the door that was way up there. And he comes walking down the aisle. And I was like, oh my God, James Cameron's here. I don't even want to talk about my little film. And he just kept getting closer and closer and closer, and walked up onto the stage. And he goes, he puts his hand down to shake my hand. He goes, hi, I'm James Cameron. I was like, yeah, I'm aware. And he sat down beside me, and he was my person to be interviewed with. And you can see in the video, I start drinking water like 90 miles an hour because I thought I was going to pass out. And then he did his talk, and his was more about lobbying and how Avatar was a lot about climate change and the things he wanted to change, and how now he lives on a New Zealand ranch that grows organic. And, you know, he was just talking a lot about all of that. And then it was my turn, and I said, I don't even know why I'm lucky enough to sit here, but, you know, this is my little film. We went on a dog sled journey. We figured, you know, we found out what was going on, and I just wanted to try and do my part, whatever that could be. And then I showed some of the footage, and I got a standing ovation. I almost started crying. I was trying to be so cool, and I was not cool at all. And he stood up and said, this is what we need. People that care enough to just step out of their comfort zone and do something. And I've never been more proud in my life. And he handed me his card, and he wrote his cell phone on it. And he said, look, if you need any help editing or any help with anything, call my number when you're at that point, and I'll help you. And so I carried that number around like it was the Holy Grail for like 3 months. And then it came time, and everybody by then had said so many negative things. You know how people can be. And they were like, he's not going to answer your call. He just said that, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, I know he's going to answer, and I know he's going to help me. And I called him, and he was like, okay, great. Let's do it. Let's do it in my home movie theater in Malibu. He goes, when can you fly out? Because I wasn't living in LA then. He sent a car to get me. He brought me to his house, and we sat in his home theater for 5 hours. And we talked about AIDS and cancer and pharmaceutical companies and climate change and the rainforest. And like, the guy is obviously a genius. He can talk on any level. He knew more about pharmaceuticals than 90% of the people I work with. Like, it was mind blowing to have conversations with him. It was one of the best days of my life. And he was the one that suggested that there be narration with Theo, even though we killed him. Oh, whoops, I just blew it for everybody. Oh my God. Anyway, watch the film. But even though we did something that isn't normally done, he said it's okay to break that rule because he needs to narrate throughout, because we need to see ourselves through his eyes, which was very important. And he was dead on. So we brought on a new person who wrote the narration, and he was fantastic. And his name is Michael Stiles. And he wrote all the narration. And when we added that, it made such a difference, because then it kind of explains, as you're watching Theo, what he's thinking in his mind about us. Like, and it's not preachy or anything. It's just his, like you said, it's Crocodile D. It's more like, oh, this man is so sweet. Like he's just seeing such a different way compared to his way of life.
Well,
like,
it's always interesting to see the world through someone else's eyes. I think that's the purpose of all fiction, whether it be books, comic books, movies,
of life, to be honest, because if we did, we wouldn't judge people the way that we do.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. I don't know how much longer you can stay, but we have a lot of questions here.
Sorry.
As we wrap
I'd
up.
love to stay all day.
Okay, well, let's get to some of these comments and questions. Some really good. The chat is on fire. We have over 100 people watching. Please smash that like button. Smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. It's our mission to bring you filmmakers so we can have a conversation about all types of topics. VDRs is definitely not wasteful. Chris says every magazine he's bought since 1985. Probably true. I'd say, but I also donate a lot. Like, I kind of feel like when it comes to my possessions, I want them to go to a better place, whether it be clothing I donate or whatever. I
good for you.
I hardly throw anything away. I'm always
good for you.
Recycling there, donating. Scott Slaughterbeck, doom and gloom does not help. Many exclamation points. Look at solutions. I agree. This is why I actually think that the narrative around climate change is so depressing. It's affecting young people. When you look at birth rates, when you look at like major life decisions that young people make, this narrative isn't helping. There's a different narrative. Scott Slaughterbeck goes on to say humans are very resourceful. We can solve global warming. And I believe that. They've talked about these the plastics that are in the ocean that are, the fish are eating it, and it's getting into humans. And there you can look, and this is why I love TED Talks. I am addicted, love the TED Talks, because it's a lot of people presenting, especially when you go into the science ones, they present solutions. And I saw a guy who had created this thing that collects, it's just organic. It's like a net that kind of almost moves on its own and just collects the garbage in the ocean.
I've seen that. Yeah.
It's fascinating. And I really believe that innovation is gonna save us.
I agree. I agree with you, like 100%. And Richard Branson says it daily, that exactly what you're saying. And you sound like an Inuit person, because even though it's happening to them, every day that we were up there, they were the most positive people. They were saying, we will adapt. We're human beings. We adapt. And that's what we've been doing since the beginning of time. But it's just, I think it's hard, because when we made the film, we almost got bashed a lot by the climate change people, because we didn't say enough about climate change. But our thing more was to just show through Theo's eyes what he was seeing about who we are, and just try to make changes in yourself, because we always want to be the best we can be, and that's the whole point, is just to try. Once you know better, then just do better. That's basically it.
Well, I've always, and I guess it's just from my grandparents, the way they raised, they were practically my surrogate parents, my grandparents. And because they grew up during the Depression, no, it's not a bad thing. It was great. And they just taught me a lot, and positivity, having a positive attitude and look for solutions and not live in doom and gloom. And Scott, thank you for your comments. You and I are on the same page on that. Lagbait says, oh, we're doing a garden again this year. Eggplant. I had no idea I liked eggplant. So there you go. Now, you can make a garden. You can, I have a lemon tree in my little garden area. And I don't know, I'll throw it in my water, get a little lemon, I could make lemonade.
And honestly, that's the best thing you can do, because live food that's just picked, there's so many studies about it. It does better for your body than anything else that you could do. Just something live, and then you eat it right away.
Exactly. Lorena Creole. Hey, Lorena. I know her. She says people have even forgotten how to make meals at home. Eating out used to be only for special occasions. Lorena, you're exactly right. There's something about making a meal. I'm not great cook. I think if you're a good cook, you're an artist. I'm better at baking. Baking is more based on science, and that's something I can do. But I can make a mean breakfast. DM Foe says corporations take an easier route by blaming their own customers as the problem, rather than creating an earth-friendly packaging and products. There is, first of all, great comment. There was a type of material that they were using that was made from corn syrup for packaging, for snack packaging, potato chips and whatnot, that they stopped using because the crinkle of it was too loud and people didn't like it. Look this up. Bill Maher talked about it on his show. So Scott Slaughterbeck said eggplant parmesan is sublime. We have so many comments here, Monica. You've really inspired our chat here. Kyle Mac with a K says Freeman Dyson had a great take on global warming and climate change. Look up Freeman Dyson. I would like to hear that.
I'm going to write that down, actually.
Yeah, Freeman Dyson. No one told Monica to have a poker face during the audition process. Please tell me the auditions will be part of the special features in the physical media release. Well, hopefully there'll be some special features on the physical media.
So cute. I wish we would have.
Side Hustle Life LLC, such great stories. Thank you, Monica, for sharing the comment there. Holy hand grades. This is even funnier considering Chris had just showed us his not cool moment before this interview. Yes, well, before you joined, I was showing embarrassing videos of myself because why not? Because we're all here to have fun. Cavatino Cavalryman Shay, note to anyone watching, have tissues in arm's reach when watching Chloe and Theo. Oh,
yeah.
Okay, all right. Good to know. Good to know.
I should throw in that Chloe and Theo is available on Amazon Prime if you have an Amazon Prime.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, and Hulu and a bunch of others.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Lagbait says, off topic. I know she said those are all scripts behind her, which is awesome, but I really like that cabinet. Well, there you go.
I know. Isn't it beautiful? It really is.
Yeah. Solomon Thornton says, my parents are old school. They always preach to me to recycle. I used to not do it a lot, but now I do it every single day. I've always, I mean, as soon as that was kind of introduced as a thing, is like, of course, yeah, we do that. Like, and my grandparents were definitely, because of the era they grew up in, you know, they were not wasteful about stuff, and they used to even like make fun of it, like, why would you go out to dinner? I can make a better, my grandmother would always say, I can make a better whatever it is. She could make a better burger, but she made, my grandparents were Polish and Russian, and they would make pierogies, and they were homemade pierogies.
Oh, I love pierogies.
Oh my god, homemade pierogies, the best. But we've got to wrap things up here. So I just want to thank you, Monica, for being on the show. And the movie Chloe and Theo, it's out. It's on Amazon. You can find it. Look for it, and bring some tissues, as has been said. Monica, thank you for joining us on the Film Threat podcast. And good luck on the film. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. You're such a nice person.
Oh, well, don't let that
fool you.
Don't let that fool you. I have a sense of humor about myself. Maybe that's my saving grace. But people are saying, thank you, Monica. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
There you go. Thanks, Monica. Appreciate it. All right. Talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye. That was great.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Oh my gosh. The chat is still on fire here.
You know, I should throw out 2 documentaries that I think are applicable. I just saw it this week, To Which We Belong, and The Biggest Little Farm, which is on Hulu. But the To Which We Belong, it addresses climate change, and unlike most environmental documentaries, it actually finds solutions. It actually tries to say, hey, if we did these things, if we stopped doing these monocrops, these corporate monocrops across the nation, we could actually heal the land. Grow better produce, raise better livestock, and even fix climate change. And and I think you brought it up. It's one thing to constantly call out what's wrong with the world, but it's another to find solutions to change it.
I think I got that attitude from my grandparents, because they were always, they would laugh doing anything. Like my sister and I would always get these chores to do, but they would make it fun. It was like they tricked us into doing work, and then we'd earn 50 cents, which I would use to buy comic books. So that's what I would do. Look, I appreciate we bring all sorts of filmmakers here, to chat with you. We felt that because this is Earth Day, this would be a good guest to have on, having Monica on. And the one thing I did want to talk to her about a little bit was the Aspen thing. I don't know about like whenever you see they do these
Summits.
the summits, it's always like somewhere glamorous and luxurious, and that I feel like it's sort of the message of that I'm not entirely 100% sure about here. So let's get to some of your comments. Here we go. B-roll says, what an authentic soul, great interview. Scott Slaughterbeck says Monica should make more films. Yes, I agree. Shelby AC says good Earth Day guest. And yeah, so I really think I learned from my grandparents, not to waste anything. Wasting food was a sin. That was wasting food was considered a sin. It was a bad thing. So there you go. Yeah. Ladart says, I always sing while I do stuff around the house or garden. It's so much more cheerful that way. I agree. Just having look, you can make a choice one way or the other, right? You can make a choice that is maybe on the more negative side, and you can make a choice that's on the more positive side. But I have I should actually go, Alan, if you'll wait a second, why don't you run the show? I'm gonna walk away for 60 seconds. I'll be right back. I'm going to be right back. So here we go.
Yeah. So there's some comments here that really struck me. We save beef fat, use a cook. I think this has to do with the previous comment, but it's the idea of, when you slaughter an animal, you use everything. And I think there's at least in my Chinese tradition, that is certainly true. When we go to banquets and we have chicken or fish, the entire chicken and the entire fish is on the plate. And then recently I saw a documentary, actually on YouTube, where this foodie goes into Egypt and they slaughter a camel, and how important it is in the Muslim countries to utilize the entire animal, to make use of everything, the intestines, the skin, the fur, the head. They were eating camel head. You waste nothing.
VDR great comments here. Chris has a lot of passion. Ing is the straight man of the duo. I don't know necessarily. I mean, I've seen Alan do comedy at the National Comedy Theater in San Diego, and I'll do a review of it at some point. I'm going to do a review of Alan.
You need to see a better show.
I feel like that show. It was weird because your daughter was there, and it just and
I don't do the dirty show.
It was literally a dirty show. It was very blue humor. So there you go. But VDR. Yeah, I think, I hope Alan and I bring something different to the show. I appreciate it. So, and Solomon Thornton says Monica deserves a humanitarian award after seeing that trailer. Trailer's great. I mean, you need to see the movie. It's not super preachy. It's not super preachy. At least that's the sense that I got. I want to show you this. This is a magazine that I've had for a long time. It's dated July 7th, 1969.
Yeah.
It is issue of Newsweek magazine. It's about it's about NASA, the space program, and going to the moon for the first time. Really amazing. But there is an article in here, and I'm going to find it, on climate change that's very doom and gloom. And I do think that people don't like that. People don't like the doom and gloom messaging and negativity. I do believe that even though, look, CNN Plus, not even a month old, has been canceled because
I get my money back. Yes.
Well, I just feel that the problem with that is that a lot of the stuff on CNN, questionable journalism, actual journalism, and then the way that stories were portrayed, the way that Joe Rogan was portrayed, right? Like, somebody made a joke on social media talking about, Joe Rogan you can look this up. This isn't old news, but it was interesting. Like, Joe Rogan says, I drink water. And CNN's take on that is like, Joe Rogan drinking a fluid used normally used in cars. Like, yes, water is actually used in cars and radiators, but geez, like, you see the way that they frame these stories. But in this issue of Newsweek magazine from back in the day, there's an article, doom and gloom, about the climate. And the messaging is not much different than the messaging that we're getting today. And so that's why I question, well, a story that is
over 50 years old,
53 years old, about the climate doom and gloom, look, from afar it seems so, but a closer look shows we may be heading for global disaster. The story is called Good Earth. You see that? And it's pictures of the Earth from, that NASA, world without sunshine. They're talking about, like just pollution and, it's doom and gloom story. But when I look at this, I'm like, okay, since I'm a kid, I have been hearing this story. But I will say this. I moved to Los Angeles in 1989. And if you got up to certain parts of Los Angeles, it looked like the way that the sort of valley of LA, it looked brown. I mean, you could see the smog, physically see it. And since emissions, they've changed emission standards on vehicles. In the time that I've lived in Los Angeles from 1989 to the present, it's not brown anymore.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you.
It actually, so that did have an effect. So are there things we can do? Yes. Should it be doom and gloom? And should you completely change your life and live in an alarmist state? I don't agree with that. I don't agree.
I mean, I lived in LA all my life, and you couldn't breathe. I lived on the coast, and I couldn't breathe. You go into the city of Dodger Stadium, Elysian Park, you're just grasping for breath. And it was, changing the emission laws that really started to turn around. And LA is a whole lot better. Just real quick, I think Scott wanted the documentary names again. First one's To Which We Belong, that just came out recently. The other one is The Biggest Little Farm, which is on Hulu, and then National Geographic is turning that movie into a television series.
I don't understand. I mean, like, as inflation continues to increase, and like it's actually changed my spending habits. There are things that I used to buy, like I didn't think anything of it, and when I've seen the prices raise, I'm like, that's a luxury. I don't need that. And I will say that I'm just more careful about, my trip to the grocery store. So I think it's more important to go and get stuff that's fresh. And when you look at other cultures, they shop more often, right? Especially in Europe. It's like you go to the store a couple times a week, you eat food that's more fresh. So I think that it's important that we have this conversation, but I do think that other points of view from other scientists should definitely be part of the conversation. And this alarmist, way that the discussion has been going is actually making people, someone said it earlier, just making people apathetic. Infinite Maine, what do you mean Joe Rogan didn't take horse dewormer? CNN live. He also drinks water, which is used in auto vehicles. It's crazy. So VDR says, I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I remember seeing a haze over the downtown in the 80s. It's all gone now. Like, it's visibly, I can tell you it was brown, and now that doesn't exist. So emission standards, are there things we can do? Yes. Will we adapt as humans? Yes. And we need to be presented with better choices at the grocery store. And also, it's not hard to start your own garden. I have a lemon tree. I have, like, my grandparents, they had raspberries and apples and all this. And, my sister and I were forced to work, which is how we earned money so I could buy comic books and ride my bike to the pharmacy. It was this little drugstore that had like a rack of comic books. I remember too, when they said still only 25 cents. And I'm like, oh, they're going to raise the price. It was 30 cents for a minute. Then it went to 35 cents. Yeah. And wait. Comment here. Destiny Pirate says, Chris, wrong. The world is ending 10 years ago. No, look, it's a credibility thing, right? Like, I mean, Al Gore.
Chicken Little syndrome.
By the way, Al Gore, no relation. Although I did meet him at Sundance when I think this was the year before his movie played at Sundance, An Inconvenient Truth. And he looked at my badge and he said, hey, cuz. And then we talked about Gore and that we may be distantly related because my dad grew up on a farm and his family grew up in farms in Tennessee. So it's possible there's some distant relation, but Yeah, I think the alarmist nature, and now that we can like track this stuff, that's why I think that a free internet where we can talk about these ideas, and I'm so excited about the possibility of Elon Musk actually buying Twitter so that we can have real conversations.
It's amazing what a real conversation could do to save the world. And
well, just different points of view. We're different points of view rather than vilifying. I don't agree with this, and this happened around election time, vilifying people and dehumanizing people who may be on some opposite side of the political aisle. Anyone who does that, I disagree with, and I call it out, which is why I actually spend far less time on social media, my personal social media, that Chris Gore. You're welcome to check it out. I'm not going to tweet very much. Mostly I promote stuff, and then I say the random little kernel, because I don't think Twitter in its current form is a positive place to have a conversation. Having said that, what we're doing now on YouTube and talking amongst each other, I think is, I think is positive. Bethel Games says the car emissions were extreme, but the reduction and better burning temperatures reduced the soot particles. Further, they had to get rid of the lead in the fuels for the catalyzers.
Keep going.
I'm sorry. Infinite Main, the world ended in 2012, right? Maybe it did. I'll tell you this.
There's a whole movie about that.
Yes. Well, I have a story about 2012. I might as well tell it. So the movie 2012, came out. John Cusack's in it. It's a cheesy, Roland Emmerich, over the top disaster movie. Fine. But at the time I was doing stand-up comedy, I was awful. Okay. By the way, I had a couple, I could probably write comedy, but I don't know if stand-up comedy was really my thing. I just like to tell stories. But one of the jokes that, I used to tell was like, I wonder if the Mayans, in their wisdom, they either predicted the end of the world or they foresaw the movie 2012. Because if you watch the trailer for that movie, it's horrifying. So I actually went to the junket for 2012 when I was working for G4, and they had this panel of 2012 experts, and like, it's definitely going to happen. The world's going to end in 2012. The Mayans predicted it, and blah, blah, blah. And it's going to happen. That's the end of the calendar. Their calendars. It's over. It was doom and gloom. And I raised my hand as the last question. And I raised my hand and I said, I have a question. Do you think the Mayans predicted the end of the world being 2012, or did they just in their mind's eye see the trailer for the movie 2012? The entire room burst out laughing, and they were freaking annoyed. And one of the scientists, one of the experts on this panel, came up to me afterward and said, that's a very good theory, because in the mind's eye of a Mayan, they wouldn't understand what a movie is. So they may have in fact seen it. Let's assume a Mayan can actually see into the future. Okay, let's make that assumption, which is weird, right? Let's assume they can see it. They wouldn't understand that this is a movie trailer and that movies are fake. And then I got in this whole discussion with this guy. He was great. He was an anthropologist. We got in this discussion. We started talking about, and I'm really glad to finally bring this up, Star Wars.
232.
Star Wars.
That's pretty good.
Exactly.
We went 2.5 hours.
It took me 2.5 hours to get the Star Wars. And I said, look, what if you took a copy of the movie Star Wars and you went back to, say, colonial America, the 1600s or the 1700s, and you showed people in colonial America, you showed them the movie Star Wars? What would they think? And he got all excited. He was just like, oh my God, that's so fascinating. One, because the main thing that people knew about was the Bible, stories from the Bible. They read the Bible, church going was very important. And they would see Luke as a Christ-like figure. They would see Darth Vader as the devil and Satan. And they would, through the lens of how they saw the world, they would sort of put that on the movie Star Wars, and they wouldn't understand a lot of what they were seeing. But yeah, Yeah, lag bait. Yes, exactly. A scientist analyzing a joke. I love it. But I was actually trying to make a serious point, which I think some of the best humor can do is make a serious point. And my point was, I don't think the world's going to end in 2012. I think the Mayans just foresaw this movie. So there you go. Yeah, and Patrick Lemire said they burn you at the stake. And the Vavitch, don't call it the Vavitch, it's the Witch. The Witch times Star Wars mashup. Scott Slaughterbeck says 2012 OMG. But if they could see into the future, wouldn't they be able to see the development of film and cinema? Maybe, or maybe they just started seeing, they wouldn't understand me. Think about it. Their sophistication, their primitives, would they actually understand it?
Yeah.
So
film would be the new papyrus, I guess.
I guess it would be. Let's get through more of your comments, and we're going to wrap up. We've gone 2.5 hours today. B-roll, if you trust Elon to give us free speech, I have a unique timeshare opportunity for you. Well, look, I don't think Elon can do any worse than is going on now, because I feel like the way that Twitter is censoring people, it's clearly, it's definitely they favor one political side over the other, and I don't agree with that. I don't think there's any standard. You've got certain people receiving death threats that go unnoticed. So death threats for one side is okay and another side isn't. And I think it's amplified the sort of hateful nature of Twitter. It's certainly driven me off the platform where I use it solely. I use Twitter to promote things that we're doing here at Film Threat or projects I'm working on. I also use it to, I use it to every once in a while throw out like a little thought. So there we go. Patrick Lemire.
I'll just say, to me, it's simple. If they would just outline the community guidelines and follow them fairly, then you'd have no problems.
Exactly. So B-roll, I disagree. I feel like new management is necessary, whether it's Elon or somebody else. I don't like the way the Twitter's being run, and it's driven me from the platform, and it's certainly not growing. Patrick Lemire, to be fair, alarmism did get us to stop using aerosols, which did help close a hole in the ozone. Well, yeah,
we don't talk about it. That's we closed the hole.
Yeah,
we say, hey, look what humanity did. We
exactly
fixed the problem.
It's the same thing we talk about the history of the United States, and there's a negative way of looking at looking at things, and there's a positive way of looking at things where you look at our history and go, hey, we made changes, and we made changes. Look, women's suffrage. I mean, how long have women been able to vote? It's what, over 100 years now?
Well over 100 years, yeah.
Yeah, but okay, yeah, we figured out that stuff that wasn't cool and we fixed it. So can we celebrate that rather than say how awful we are? There's a different way of doing it. And I do think it's affecting, I think that the negativity, the alarmism, and the doom and gloom about the future is affecting kids. I see it in my kids who are in their 20s. And I think it's bad, and I don't support it. I always try to be positive. Solomon Thornton, my parents are old school and they always preach to me to recycle. I used to not do it a lot, but now I do it every single day. That's great. Lag bait. Off topic. I know. Oh, well, we read that comment before. Sorry about that. We're going to wrap things up, folks, but I have a treat for you. Well, one, Alan is going to turn around. He's going to do a special video for Earth Day, and he's going to clip out Monica's video and post it today. That's going to be posted today. And yeah, who invented taxes? Well, that's a whole other thing. Fletcher Williams says, did you see Attack on Titan, Alan?
It is on my list. It is definitely on my list. My daughter wants me to watch it.
Okay, I've seen some of the animated series, but I have the 2 movies. There's 2 movies, Attack on Titan. Fletcher, we should do a special video. I want to start another show. We're looking at launching another show. There's two more shows we're going to launch. One is called Versus, and then the other one is called The Gory Details, where we kind of just drill down into something that's not necessarily timely. Film Threat podcast on Fridays will always be timely. The Hollywood on the Rocks will be us just kind of hanging out. And Attack on Titan, we want to talk about that. We definitely want to talk about that. Horror Mike says, Chris, have you thought about putting out a book, the Best of Film Threat book? That would be awesome. There was an author that was working on a book project like that, and he got burned out. I really hope that he returns to the project. The working title of the book was The Worst of Film Threat. And there's a documentary that's in the works called Film Threat Sucks. That's in the works. I wonder if I could find the trailer for the Film Threat Sucks documentary. I wonder.
The Attack of the Dock is up there.
Is it? Yeah, no, Attack of the Dock, like actually the 20-year anniversary of G4 TV is actually it's this Sunday. And here's what I'll do, because you guys are special and you're here. There's over 100 people watching. I am going to show you the teaser trailer for Attack of the Dock. We're going to be screening it in July at San Diego Comic-Con. Alan's going to be there. He's going to host the Q&A. We're going to screen it during San Diego Comic-Con, not officially as part of San Diego Comic-Con. It'll be in San Diego during Comic-Con because a lot of people come in for that. So there you go. But I will show you we're actually going to debut this on the Film Threat YouTube channel on Sunday. We're going to put it on the Attack of the Dock channel, but why not? You're all here. I'm going to share with you. The trailer. It's less than a minute. And so here it is. It's because you stuck around for so long that I'm going to play this for you. So it's less than a minute. Check this out. I'd like you to see it.
Remember a time not long ago when we came together to celebrate the things we all loved? All the things we cared about? Attack of the Show united all of us into one giant nerdy family.
Coming soon, finally.
All right. Okay. So there you go. That you saw it. It's going to debut on Sunday. It'll be out public, and hopefully you'll share it.
So we're going to celebrate G4's anniversary more than G4 itself.
Well, no, it's the 20th anniversary of G4, and this documentary has been in the works for some time. So there you go. You can watch the trailer without Alan and I's head on the screen there. But we are going to, yes, Jeffrey Brooks asked, will there be an iTunes release or Blu-ray? There's going to be a limited edition Blu-ray that's coming out in the fall. It will be first shipped to Kickstarter backers. There will be a digital release also in the fall. After we screen it at San Diego Comic-Con, I may screen it also at Dragon Con in Atlanta and LA Comic-Con as well. So instead of going to film festivals, we're going to go to Comic-Cons and we're going to screen the movie. And then additionally, there will be a digital release before the end of this year. It's going to be in the fall. We don't have a date yet. That is our teaser trailer. There will be a full trailer that's going to debut that'll have like the date of when the movie's coming out. And then the Film Threat Sucks documentary, that's a whole other. I wonder if I could find it. We could show that. You know what? I'll show it next week. I'll show it next week on our Hollywood on the Rocks thing. Can you link to the Kickstarter? The Kickstarter's over. The Kickstarter is over. If you did contribute to the Kickstarter, you have gotten some rewards. There was a patch that we did, these Attack of the Dock patches, which were limited edition. We did jackets, special crew jackets and whatnot. Jeffrey Brooks says, come to San Antonio, Texas. If you can tell me if there's a Comic-Con there after July, I'd love to come there and show the movie. There you go. Can we get you to sign our DVD copies? Absolutely. If you contributed to the Kickstarter, I will absolutely sign the Blu-ray. And where can non-backers buy? We will, when we have a link, I'll let you know. But that'll be in the fall. There will be a link where you'll be able to purchase. It's going to be a limited release, only direct. We're not going to put it in stores. It's going to be direct order only for the Blu-ray and or the digital release. Now, what's interesting about the Blu-ray is going to take all the people we interviewed for the doc, and we have the unedited interviews. It's like 40 hours of interviews. It's crazy. So if you really want to take a deep dive, you can go, this executive or one of the directors, I talked to them for like an hour, but they're only in the doc for like 30 seconds. You'll be able to, kind of like a podcast, you can just listen to it. So There you go. I will.
I will say I have nothing to do with the project, and I will sign DVDs if.
Yeah. And Gabriel asks, I know this has been answered before. Wait, I can't. Why can't I show that? What happened?
Which one?
Something locked up.
Oh, I got it.
Gabriel, I know this has been answered before, but where will the full movie be available after it's out? All digital platforms. So iTunes, Vudu, wherever you digitally buy movies. Prime, it'll be for purchase and rent. And then you'll also be able to get the Blu-ray, which will have deleted scenes, commentary track, and about 40 hours of what I would say describe as more like podcast interviews. Kevin Smith did something like that for his release of a movie called Red State, which I thought was, it's one of my favorite Kevin Smith movies because it doesn't feel like a Kevin Smith movie. And I like that he kind of broke out and did something different. Red State's like a horror movie. It's awesome. So, yeah, and Lagbait says, why can't I click on comments? Getting Alan to sign it is tempting. Yeah, Alan could sign it.
It should be a stretch goal.
It should be a stretch goal. Okay, we're not, maybe, yeah, smart, like the teaser at Comic-Con. Yeah, we'll show the trailer at Comic-Con, but then what we'll also do is we're going to show the movie it's going to be a secret screening. If you're a backer, if you backed, or you're a Patreon supporter, there is a Patreon, actually. I think it's just if you go to Patreon and look up Attack of the Doc. I'll put it in the here. Put it in here. It's just Patreon Attack of the Doc. We did a whole bunch of updates where I did like 50 episodes of DV Tuesday. So yeah, I'll put that in the chat, and I'll put it. There you go. If you go there, you will be anyone that donated to the Patreon or the Kickstarter will be first available. We'll be able to get it, and then we'll have whatever Blu-rays are left over. We'll sell, but I don't want a whole bunch of Blu-rays sitting in my place because my place is not. Okay. I don't live in a very huge place.
Okay, not to cut the fun short, but I do have to get going.
Okay, you got to get going. Okay, great. Let's wrap it up. Alan, where can people find you on social media?
Let's see. I'll just do Twitter, my pal Al. Also Instagram, Film Threat Alan at Instagram.
And you can find my personal at that Chris Gore. If you're interested in Attack of the Doc, just look up Attack of the Doc, DOC. It's on Instagram, Twitter. There is a website. We haven't updated in a while, but you can look on the Patreon if you'd like to support there. And the movie will be out in the fall. First screening during San Diego Comic-Con in July. You'll know details about that. And we live stream currently twice a week. We're going to move to 3 times a week soon. But on Wednesday nights, look for Hollywood on the Rocks. That's our drinking show. We like to just hang out. And Friday mornings, always for the Film Threat podcast. Some people like to call it a live cast. And Alan, take us out. What do we like to say at the end of the show every time?
Let's get out of here.
Wait a sec. One more thing. I want to say thank you to everyone in the chat, your support. Everyone who super chatted, thank you so much. I'm still getting used to doing this. I love to just chat with all of you and every week, and growing what I hope will be just more people sitting here hanging out, talking about movies. I also want to thank Robert Eggers for doing the interview. We didn't get to do it live, but I got to ask some pretty odd questions, and then I got to show you some very cringy videos of myself. Alan, repeat for me again.
Let's get out of here.